The sharp, piercing pain at my temple still carried the icy sensation of my head slamming hard against the blue brick in my past life. I snapped my eyes open, greeted by the warm, soft yellow gauze canopy. My fingertips trembled as they touched my forehead. The skin was smooth and flawless, without a single scar. The suffocating feeling of dying slowly receded, and I stared intently at the fresh, youthful face of a young girl in the dressing mirror. This was the spring glory pavilion of the General's mansion, and today was the very day my half-sister, Bai Wei, would feign madness and attempt suicide, framing me in the process. "Eldest miss, are you awake? Miss Bai Wei is causing a scene again." The anxious voice of Hanyang, my personal maid, came from outside the door, laced with an unmistakable tone of helplessness. In my past life, hearing this would have sent me into a panic, rushing over to soothe Bai Wei. In the chaos, I would be cut on the arm by the broken blade hidden in her sleeve, only to be accused of being jealous and violent. Rumors would spread throughout the city, and my father would be utterly disappointed in me. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and pressed the bone-deep hatred deep into my heart, digging my nails into my palms, forcing myself to calm down. "I see." My voice was soft, yet wrapped in a piercing chill. Hanyang pushed the door open and froze on the spot when she saw my indifferent expression. In the past, whenever Bai Wei was mentioned, I would be as frantic as an ant on a hot pan, but today, all that remained was a cold, detached calm. "Miss, Bai Wei says her heart aches. She's been making a scene in the back garden again, claiming that the madam wants to move her to a side room, feeling humiliated and vowing to die to prove her integrity," Hanyang said as she combed my hair, carefully gauging my reaction. I looked at my still youthful reflection in the mirror, yet my eyes were already brimming with resilience, and a faint, cold smile curled at the corners of my lips. The same old trick of playing the victim. She always knew how to exploit mother's soft heart. Whenever she fell out with me, she would threaten to take her own life, drawing everyone's attention to herself and painting me as the cruel, venomous elder sister. Since she's so determined to die, I'll grant her wish. I picked up a jade hairpin and calmly tucked it into my hair. "Go and inform mother that I caught a chill last night and have a splitting headache, so I am unable to go and console Bai Wei. Let her handle it as she sees fit." Hanyang's hand trembled, nearly dropping the wooden comb. "Eldest miss, you absolutely cannot do this. If something truly happens, how will you explain it to the general when he returns? The general's mansion will not cease to function just because someone is absent." I rose and straightened my robes, standing tall with none of my former weakness. "I am unwell. If mother asks, tell her I am bedridden and too weak to even step onto the ground." In my past life, I always considered myself the backbone of the household, constantly yielding for the sake of so-called sisterly harmony, enduring endless grievances. In this life, I want to see how long her clumsy act can last without my soft words of consolation and my sacrifices for peace. I moved to the window, where the warm sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow on the bluestone floor, gazing at the crabapple tree in the courtyard. My mind was clear and calm. "Bai Wei, our reckoning will come." Slowly, though Hanyang did not understand my transformation, seeing my cold and stern expression, she dared not offer further advice and withdrew with a bow. I sat on the soft couch, toying with a warm jade pendant from the western regions. This was a treasured gift my father had brought back from his distant travels. In my past life, I had eagerly given it to Bai Wei, hoping only for a gentle smile from her, only for her to turn around and present it to her beloved. At the thought, I coldly locked the pendant into a box. Before long, hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. Nurse Li, who served my mother, called out in panic, "Eldest miss, come quickly. Miss Bai Wei has hung a white silk noose in the rear garden pavilion and insists on seeing you one last time before she'll relent." I lifted my teacup, leisurely skimming off the foam, took a shallow sip, and spoke calmly. "Nurse Li, Bai Wei is not a legitimate relative of the general's mansion. Why must she make such a fuss and threaten with death? If mother cannot control her, let her wait until father returns to decide. I am but a secluded legitimate daughter. How can I determine her life or death?" Nurse Li froze at the doorway, utterly unprepared for such cold and harsh words from me. All the speeches she had prepared were stuck in her throat. "Eldest miss, if these words reach the madam's ears, it would truly be inappropriate." "What's wrong?" I lifted my gazed to her, a sharp glint hidden in my eyes. Could it be that the prestige of the general's mansion must be coerced by a concubine's daughter threatening death? Or is it that, in your eyes, nurse, I, as the legitimate eldest daughter, must endure her daily nagging and crying, bearing a load of undeserved shame? Nurse Lee's heart tightened under my stare. In the past, I had always been gentle and never displayed such authority. She quickly lowered her head. This old servant is only worried that the mistress is too grieved. If you're truly worried about mother, then call for a physician and wait for father. No need to come to me again. I set down my teacup, my tone steady and resolute, as I said, I am ill with a headache and cannot bear to see blood or hear words of doom. Seeing that I would not yield an inch, Nurse Lee dared not say more and slunk out in disgrace. I gazed into the bronze mirror and lightly curled my lips. In my past life, I cared far too much about others' opinions, fearing that people would accuse my legitimate elder sister of being harsh, only to let her despicable tactics become the shackles that bound me. Now that I have cast off these shackles, let us see just who will be burned by this catastrophe. About a quarter of an hour later, a sharp wail came from outside the window. Bai Wei's deliberately raised voice. Elder sister Changing, what wrong have I done for you to despise me so? If you cannot tolerate me, I will simply end myself. Why must you humiliate me like this? These words were shouted loudly, clearly meant for all the servants within the estate to hear. I let out a cold scoff, draped a lotus-pink outer robe over my shoulders, pushed open the door, and walked out slowly until I stood beneath the veranda. Two old women were pulling at the disheveled Bai Wei, who had a white silk cord clutched tightly in her hand, tears clinging to her eyelashes. The moment she saw me appear, she immediately assumed a look of utter grievance, breaking free from the servants and stumbling unsteadily toward me. I sidestepped smoothly to avoid her. She missed her mark, staggering 2 steps and nearly falling. The servants in the courtyard, witnessing this, turned their gazes on me, all tinged with scrutiny and displeasure. I paid it no mind, merely brushing my sleeves lightly, calmly watching her put on her act. Dear sister, what are you doing? I asked, my voice cold, devoid of any warmth. This white silk is meant for seeking death. Why, before you've even tightened it around your neck, are you in such a hurry to come and pour out your grievances to me? Bai Wei's face froze, and the tears in her eyes abruptly stopped before she burst into even more heart-wrenching sobs. How can you speak like that? Sister, do you just wish for me to die? Seeking death is your choice. But where you die and how your affairs are handled afterward are the rightful concerns of the general's mansion. I stepped forward, lowering my voice so that only the two of us could hear. Bai Wei, you've been playing this act for years. Do you truly think everyone in the mansion is blind? Her body trembled violently, and her eyes, as they met mine, were filled with an incredulous panic. The sorrow in her tears was instantly overshadowed by shock. Yet, in a mere moment, she quickly lowered her head again, a delicate and timid expression once more adorning her face, though her slightly trembling shoulders could not conceal the turmoil within. Sister, I don't understand what you're saying, she deliberately raised her voice to ensure the maids and servants nearby heard clearly. I just feel constrained everywhere in this mansion and seek a release. If you truly despise me so, I'll grant your wish right now. As her voice fell, she spun around abruptly and staggered toward the red-lacquered pillar beneath the corridor. The surrounding servants cried out in alarm, rushing forward to stop her. In my past life, I was manipulated by this very scene, frantically pulling her back, only to be scratched by her and burdened with infamy. In this life, I stood still. The moment she was about to crash into the pillar, I leisurely took a silk handkerchief from my sleeve to wipe my fingertips and coldly ordered the servants, since my sister insists on seeking death, someone, prepare a top-grade coffin of the finest pearwood. After all, she is a daughter taken in by my father. The general's mansion cannot slight her posthumous dignity. Also, send someone to the military camp outside the city immediately to summon father back to the residence. Tell him that Bai Wei is determined to die in the manor today and ask the general to return and witness this tragedy. At these words, Bai Wei, who was about to throw herself into the pillar, suddenly froze, all the force of her charge dissipating. The courtyard fell into dead silence. Everyone stunned by my calm yet cold orders. Bai Wei turned to look at me, her eyes filled with disbelief. She had originally hoped I would panic and rush forward to stop her, thus proving to the crowd that I mistreated my half-sister and was hypocritical and heartless. But I went along with her threat of death and made grand preparations for a funeral. Sister, you, the carefully feigned crying act she had put on instantly cracked. Why have you stopped, little sister? I walked slowly to stand before her, looking down from above. Weren't you determined to die? Could it be that a Namu-wood coffin isn't worthy of your status? Or perhaps, from start to finish, this bitter play of yours was never really about dying, but just a way to force me to bow my head? Bai Wei was forced backward step by step, her back pressed firmly against the pillar, her face alternating between pale and livid. The onlooking servants exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier dissatisfaction with me now turning entirely into suspicion of her. If she truly wanted to die, why would she shrink back at the critical moment, stirring up chaos throughout the entire household? Her eyes kept darting toward the courtyard gate, clearly waiting for her mother to come and back her up. Hasty footsteps sounded outside the courtyard gate, and her mother, Lady Wen, hurried over with a group of maids. The moment she saw Bai Wei's disheveled clothes and tearful expression, she gasped in distress, rushing over in 3 quick strides to pull her into a protective embrace. Weiya, why are you doing this? Who dared to push you to the brink of death? Mother turned furiously, her gaze full of reproach landing on me, changing, as the elder legitimate sister. Are you just going to stand by and watch your sister make a scene? Can't you yield to her a little? I stood on the steps, watching my mother's partial demeanor, completely unmoved. In my past life, no matter how I defended myself, she could only ever see Bai Wei's tears, never my grievances. Mother, I said, my expression calm and unruffled, Bai Wei is determined to die, so I naturally intend to fulfill her wish. I have already sent for father to return home. This matter concerns a life, and as a general, it is only right that he comes back to settle things fairly. My mother's face darkened. Stirring this up for everyone to see, what good does it do your reputation? Outsiders will only say that you, the legitimate elder daughter, are cold and ruthless. Ruthless? I gave a faint smile, meeting her eyes directly. Would you rather watch Bai Wei spill blood on the spot, leaving me stained with the infamy of driving someone to death, or have father told the truth so he can judge right from wrong? You always call me heartless, mother, but who is it that stirs up chaos in the general's mansion day after day? My mother had never seen me argue so vehemently. Her well-maintained hands trembled slightly as she looked at me with a complex, unreadable expression. Just then, a steady, heavy footstep crossed into the courtyard. My father, clad in military attire and bearing the dust of the battlefield, swept his authoritative gaze over everyone present, and the clamor instantly fell silent. Who is causing a scene and threatening death in this household? My father asked in a deep voice. Upon seeing my father, Bai Wei clung to him as if grasping a lifeline, burying her face in my mother's arms and sobbing softly. Not daring to utter a single word of defense, I stepped forward with composure and greeted him. Father, Bai Wei feels that she cannot stay in the mansion and is determined to die to prove her innocence. I do not wish to bear the blame of forcing a concubine's daughter to her death, so I have prepared the funeral arrangements and sent for you to return and decide, lest her untimely death tarnish the general's reputation. Father furrowed his brow deeply, walked over to Bai Wei, and looked down at this concubine's daughter he had often favored. His sharp gaze silenced her sobbing abruptly. Is what Changjing said true? Bai Wei trembled all over and was about to speak in her defense, but I preempted her and turned to Mother. Mother, since father has returned, please recount the entire sequence of events today in detail, especially why Bai Wei is clamoring to die. Let us lay it all out clearly so that father may judge right from wrong. I turned to Bai Wei, a cold smile curling at the corners of my lips. In this lifetime, I would never shield her or bear the blame for her sins again. If she wanted to stir up trouble, then I would play along to the very end and see who ends up scorched by the flames. The atmosphere in the courtyard was frigid to the extreme. Bai Wei knelt on the bluestone ground, her skirt stained with mud. Her once pitiful and delicate face was now twisted and ugly with terror. My father stood with his hands clasped behind his back, the oppressive aura honed from years on the battlefield enveloping the entire courtyard. He asked again in a deep voice, Bai Wei, speak the truth. Why did you seek death? Has the general's mansion mistreated you, or has someone wronged you so grievously that you would throw away your life? Bai Wei trembled all over. Her original plan was to use the suicide attempt to provoke mother into reprimanding me, then bribe the household servants to spread rumors and trap me under the charge of a jealous elder sister. Little did she expect that I would directly bring the entire matter to father's attention. Father valued family discipline above all else. For a woman of the inner court to recklessly seek life and death was a cardinal sin among noble families. Wei just feels that in this household she will always be an outsider. She fears that elder sister Changing dislikes her, leaving her with no place to stay in the future. In a moment of foolishness, she bit her lip, tears streaming down, still trying to gain sympathy through feigned weakness before finishing. She secretly observed my expression, hoping I would panic and explain as I did in the previous life, but I just stood quietly beside father, fingering a string of jade prayer beads. My expression calm as still water. I interrupted her, my tone restrained yet every word firm. Sister, such words make it seem as if father and mother have mistreated you. In this household, from clothing to daily necessities, have you not always been given priority? If you truly feel the general's mansion cannot accommodate you, the world is vast enough for you to find another place to settle. Why threaten with death, burdening father away on military campaigns with trivial household matters that distract and trouble him? Father's brow furrowed even deeper, his gaze at Bai Wei shed all past pity, leaving only scrutiny and coldness. The guardian general valued family honor above all else. A concubine's daughter daring to threaten with her life was utterly improper. Changing is right. Father said coldly, if you are unwilling to stay in the general's mansion, I will not force you to remain. Someone, go to the storeroom and tally up the silver and valuables, then escort Bai Wei to a remote detached residence for quiet recuperation. If I ever hear the word suicide from you again, you will be sent directly to the Entang retreat on the outskirts of the city for spiritual seclusion. General, mother gasped in shock, hastily grabbing father's sleeve. Wei is still young. She was only acting foolishly out of excessive devotion to her sister. It is precisely that excessive devotion that stirs up endless unrest in this household. Father yanked his sleeve free, sweeping his gaze over the gathered servants. As for today's incident, if anyone dares to breathe a single word of it outside, they will be flogged on the spot and banished from the general's mansion. I watched Bai Wei's face turn deathly pale in an instant, a flicker of satisfaction passing through my heart. That remote residence had always been damp and isolated. In my past life, I had begged father tirelessly to let her stay in the nearest pavilion to me, the listening rain pavilion, only to invite a viper into my bosom. In this life, I have banished her to a distant place first. Even if she wishes to put on a play, there will be no audience to applaud her. Bai Wei collapsed to the ground, a flicker of intense venom flashing through her eyes before vanishing, yet it did not escape my notice. I understood well. I had already secretly sent people to search her room and retrieve the evidence of her private correspondence with outsiders. Thank you, father, for upholding justice. I performed a respectful bow, neither servile nor arrogant. Since my sister is moving to the other courtyard, the keys to the storeroom and the household accounts should be returned to mother for management. From now on, the household rules must also be strictly rectified. Father gave me a deep glance, a hint of approval shimmering in his eyes. He was not yet aware of the reason for my drastic change in temperament, yet he fully recognized my sense of responsibility as the legitimate eldest daughter. The household affairs can be left to your mother to handle. Father looked at Bai Wei, sprawled on the ground, then turned to instruct me. Changing, come with me to the study. I have something to tell you. I followed my father through the corridor, and as I passed by Bai Wei, her venomous gaze clung stubbornly to the hem of my skirt. I did not pause in my steps, a faint smile curling at the corners of my lips. This round of confrontation was merely the beginning. Every ounce of suffering she owed me in my past life, I would reclaim without a single omission. Entering the study, my father dismissed the attendants and looked at me with a complex expression. Changing, today you have truly impressed me. In the past, you always yielded to Bai Wei in every way. What made you so decisive today? I lifted my gaze, my eyes clear and unflinching. Father, I have grown up. I cannot allow others to manipulate my reputation forever. Moreover, the honor and disgrace of the general's mansion far outweigh any false sisterly bond. Father nodded approvingly. It's best that you can think this way. But Bai Wei is, after all, someone your mother brought into the household. If the conflict becomes too intense, your mother's side. Father, rest assured, I know my limits, I replied softly. Determination shining in my eyes. The dusk enveloped the study, candle flames flickering. I knew full well that this storm, though seemingly calmed, still churned with undercurrents. Bai Wei would never resign herself to being confined in the detached courtyard. She was bound to have a countermove. I had to cut off all her retreats before she could strike. The news of Bai Wei being sent to the detached courtyard spread throughout the manor within half a day. I sat by the window, leafing through the household accounts. Each entry was riddled with suspicious details. Sums of silver with unclear destinations ultimately pointed subtly to the scions of aristocratic families that Bai Wei had privately befriended. Young miss. There is a young gentleman at the gate seeking an audience, claiming he was entrusted to deliver a letter. The guards, seeing his extraordinary bearing, dared not stop him. Han Yang entered the room, her expression strange. Xie Yanji, my fingers paused, and my heart trembled slightly. In my past life, Xie Yanji was a virtuous and upright court official, who never involved himself in the disputes of the general's inner household, watching coldly as I stumbled step by step into the abyss. Now, his initiative to visit me truly catches me off guard. Invite him in. I put down the account book and tidied my hair bun. Before long, a man in a black brocade robe walked in slowly. He was tall and straight, with handsome features and deep, ancient well-like eyes that seemed to see through people's hearts. His scholarly aura was tinged with the sharp edge unique to a strategist. Miss Pei, it's been a while. Xie Yanji slightly cupped his hands, his demeanor gentle and refined. I rose to return the greeting, my expression calm. May I ask what important matter brings you here today, Master Xie? He took a yellowed letter from his sleeve and placed it on the table, offering a meaningful smile. I happened to hear about the drama in your household today, the false accusation of suicide to frame the legitimate daughter. But that concubine's daughter confined to the detached courtyard still refuses to stay quiet. My face remained still, but inwardly I grew alert. Young master is an outsider, yet you seem to know the trivial matters of my household all too well. I never intended to meddle in the general's family affairs. Xie Yanji tapped his fingers lightly on the table, producing a faint sound. But the person Bai Wei has been associating with is entangled in a recent major corruption case in the court. If that person uses the general's residence to stir up trouble, it may well drag the general into grave misfortune. I furrowed my brows slightly. Bai Wei had never breathed a word to me about the corruption case in my past life. She must have hidden it with great care. It turned out that in my previous life, she went to great lengths to frame and slander me, not solely out of jealousy over my status as the legitimate daughter and my betrothal, but also to cover up the shady dealings and collusion behind the scenes. Since you are in possession of the inside information, why not submit the evidence directly to the authorities? I probed cautiously. Official investigations require complete and solid evidence. Xie Yanji's lips curled slightly, a hint of deeper meaning concealed within. Coming here today is merely to give you a warning, miss. For some people, cutting off their hands and feet is far from enough. Only by uprooting them completely can we ensure lasting peace. I instantly understood his intention. He wanted to use my hand to eliminate Bai Wei. But the root cause was to uncover the forces behind the corruption case, though I did not know why he chose to collaborate with me. Our goals aligned, and there was no harm in joining forces. Thank you for your advice, young master. I accepted the letter, its envelope carrying a faint scent of ink, the handwriting of Bai Wei's cousin. Opening the letter, every word was shocking. Not only did it urge Bai Wei to frame me before her father, but it also instructed her to secretly embezzle the military funds of the mansion. In my past life, the false charges of embezzling military funds and colluding with rebels, turns out they were all her deliberate slanders against me, all to protect her accomplices. His knuckles turned white as he clutched the letter tightly, seething with towering hatred. In this life, I would never allow her the slightest opening to exploit. Han Yang, I called out to my maidservant, go and invite Nurse Li over. Tell her I have important matters regarding Bai Wei's conduct at the estate to discuss with her. A cold glint flickered in my eyes. She loves to put on a show, so I will set the final stage for her, letting her taste the bitter fruits of betrayal and utter ruin. The night deepened, thick and somber, and the general's mansion remained sleepless throughout. Standing in the courtyard, I fixed my gaze in the direction of the estate, my heart utterly serene. The next morning, I took all the evidence to my father's study. This time, I would not only confine Bai Wei to a remote side courtyard but also ensure she would never have a chance to rise again. Throughout history, a woman branded with charges of colluding in corruption and illicit relations with outsiders would have her entire life utterly destroyed. This was the outcome I sought. Pushing open the study door, I found my father bent over his desk reviewing military documents. Seeing me enter, he looked weary and asked, "Changing, what has happened now?" I spread a stack of letters across the desk and spoke in a low voice. "Father, today your daughter has come to protect the honor of the general's mansion." He read the letters word by word, his expression shifting from confusion to a livid pallor, and finally to blazing fury. He slammed his palm hard on the desk, sending the inkstone rolling off and shattering. "What a Bai Wei, an insatiable wretch!" I lowered my gaze, masking the satisfaction in my heart. This move, I had finally played correctly. The letter evidence not only recorded Bai Wei's scandal of illicit correspondence with an outsider, but also implicated a large-scale embezzlement of military funds. The unique traces of altered handwriting were left behind when she used to organize accounts for me, leaving her no room to deny it. She dared to touch military funds, dared to collude with a pack of corrupt officials in my name. Father trembled slightly all over with rage. I knelt on the ground, my tone steady yet tinged with sorrow. "Father, please calm your anger. In the past, I only thought she was young, with a slight tendency to take petty advantages. As long as she didn't cross the line, I tolerated her in every way. Now, after reading these letters, I realize that the general's mansion's leniency has instead become the foundation for her reckless behavior." Father closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, only a frosty chill remained in his gaze. "Other than you, who else knows of this matter?" "Only the son of Xie Yanji. He was the one who delivered the evidence, intending to prevent the general's mansion from being brought down by treacherous individuals," I answered truthfully, my tone calm. "However, he warned me that this case involves too many parties. If handled carelessly, the general's mansion might face utter destruction." Father suddenly looked up at me, filled with confusion. "Why would Xie Yanji be willing to help you?" I lowered my eyes, revealing just the right amount of concern. Perhaps he does not wish to see a loyal and virtuous family destroyed by a scheming, illegitimate daughter. Father was silent for a long time, then let out a long sigh, the helplessness of years of father-daughter trust crumbling entirely. "Go fetch your mother. This matter can no longer be hidden from her." I bowed and withdrew, a faint smile curling at the corners of my lips as I turned at this moment. Mother was still fretting over Bai Wei's suffering in the isolated courtyard, preparing a box of tonics and about to send someone to deliver them. As I stepped into the main hall, I happened to see Nanny Lee directing the maids to pack clothes. "Eldest miss, Madam is planning to send some winter clothes to Miss Bai," Nanny Lee said with a stiff smile. I raised my hand to stop her, my gaze as cold as ice. "No need to see me off. Convey the general's order, immediately seal off the side courtyard. No one is allowed in or out. All of Bai Wei's personal maids are to be taken to the woodshed for interrogation." The atmosphere in the hall instantly froze. My mother rushed out from the inner chamber in panic, her face pale. "Changing. What are you doing? Wei is just being naive and throwing a tantrum." Before she could finish, I handed her a stack of letters. At first, she paid them no mind, but as her eyes scanned the words, the teacup in her hand crashed to the ground, and her body swayed unsteadily. "Impossible. She could never have written this. Is it her handwriting? Mother can send someone to search the other courtyard, hidden in the secret compartment of her bed. There are more secret letters exchanged." My tone was calm, each word striking Mother's weak spot. "You have protected her for 10 years, yet she has used the status of the eldest legitimate daughter of the general's mansion, and even the future and life father earned on the battlefield, to trade for her own extravagant wealth." Mother suddenly collapsed into her chair, tears streaming uncontrollably. Years of favoritism and care crumbled into utter despair. Just then, A guard rushed into the hall and knelt to report, "General, news from the other courtyard." Bai Wei attempted to climb over the wall under the cover of night to escape but was caught on the spot by the guards. A large number of forged general seals and secret letters of treason were found on her. I sneered inwardly. Bai Wei could no longer hold back. Thinking that fleeing the general's mansion would save her life, little did she know, this escape had precisely walked into the deadly trap I had set for her. "Bring them up," father's deep and commanding voice echoed. From the study, leaving no room for argument, 2 guards dragged Bai Wei into the main hall like they would a beast of burden. Her once delicate and beautiful face was covered with dust, her hair in disarray, and her clothes torn and tattered. The moment she caught sight of the secret letter in her mother's hand, her face instantly turned ashen. "Mother, let me explain, it was her, Changjing, who set me up," she shrieked piercingly. Desperately trying to lunge toward her mother, I quietly stepped back a step, and the guard promptly pressed her down harshly onto the bluestone ground. Father slowly walked forward, looking down at this once pitted concubine's daughter with a terrifying calmness in his voice. "After all this, you still want to drag your legitimate elder sister down with you, Bai Wei. It is your mother and I who misjudged you, indulging you in vain for years." Bai Wei collapsed limply on the ground, her venomous gaze locked firmly on me, her hatred so intense it seemed to devour me. I gently raised my hand to straighten mother's disheveled clothes, without a ripple in my eyes, and leaned down to whisper in her ear, at a volume only the 2 of us could hear, "Little sister, farewell, your life ends here." Bai Wei's eyes grew vacant, the fragile mask she had worn for years shattered completely, her chest heaving violently as hoarse, animal-like sobs escaped her throat. She finally understood that this time no one could plead for her. The disguise she had relied on to survive had become a colossal joke in the face of ironclad evidence and father's thunderous rage. The father did not spare her another glance, waving his hand coldly. "Lock her in the dark dungeon under strict guard. At dawn tomorrow, I will personally take the witnesses and evidence to the Ministry of Justice to report the case of corruption and collusion with the enemy." "General, you must not." The mother rushed forward in panic to stop him. "If she is sent to the Ministry of Justice, the reputation of the general's mansion will be utterly ruined." The father's gaze pierced the mother like a sharp blade. Harboring a corrupt official and secretly colluding with the enemy once impeached by the censors, it is a capital crime punishable by the execution of the entire clan. Are you determined to protect this wretched creature, or to save the hundreds of lives in this household? The mother trembled all over, eventually collapsing weakly into Nurse Lee's arms, daring not to say another word. Bai Wei was dragged away like a corpse by the guards. I stood under the eaves, watching coldly. In my past life, it was I who was thrown into the dungeon and subjected to endless torment, while she played the role of a grieving sister, mourning her lost sibling before others. Now, the wheel of fate has turned. Standing high above, I watch her step by step sink into the abyss she herself has dug. Late at night, I sat alone in the small pavilion outside the study. A soft rustle of footsteps approached slowly. Xie Yanji, clad in a black robe, stood silently behind me. "Miss Pei, everything has gone as you wished." His tone was light, confident and composed. "Thank you, sir, for your invaluable assistance." I rose to return the gesture, a hint of relief flickering in my eyes. "Without the evidence you provided, my father, driven by old ties, might have left Bai Wei a thread of hope. I was merely going with the flow." He seated himself gracefully on the stone bench across from me. "The mastermind behind the corruption case has already surfaced, and the general's household has been completely rid of its greatest threat. But I am quite curious, how could you be so certain that you could overthrow her in one fell swoop?" I curled my lips faintly, offering no detailed explanation. Every step of this painstaking path of rebirth, maneuvering amid wolves and jackals, carried the blood-soaked lessons of my tragic death in a past life. People must always pay the price for their insatiable greed. I lifted my gaze to the vast night sky. She wants too much power, favor, wealth, and in the end, she will have nothing. Xie Yanji gave me a long, searching look before rising silently and leaving. The moonlight stretched his shadow long behind him. The next morning, the gates of the general's mansion swung open wide. Father personally escorted Bai Wei onto the prison cart, and the procession made its grand way toward the Ministry of Justice. crowds of onlookers lined both sides of the street, their murmurs rising and falling in waves. I stood at the mansion's entrance, watching the prison cart disappear at the end of the long street. What awaited Bai Wei was the harsh interrogation of the Ministry of Justice. For the rest of her life, she would only repent endlessly in the gloom of a prison cell. I had finally, with my own hands, severed the shackles that had bound my life in my past existence. After this turmoil, my mother's mental defenses completely collapsed, and she never mentioned Bai Wei's name again. I once again took charge of the household affairs of the general's mansion. The accounts and family rules were all under my control, and every matter, great or small, was decided by me. The crabapple blossoms in the courtyard bloomed brightly, sunlight filtering through the leaves and falling into my palm. This hard-won peace is a treasure I have earned through 2 lifetimes of suffering and careful planning. In this life, I am no longer a sacrificial lamb sent to die in place of my half-sister, nor a puppet easily manipulated by others. Pei Changing will carve out her own bold and upright path in the ever-changing capital. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. On the day I passed away peacefully, Shueshu knelt by my bedside, weeping uncontrollably. Ah Shu, in our next life, let us be husband and wife again. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the age of 16. Today is the day the Pingyang prince's family comes to propose marriage as agreed. Shueshu would also come to propose marriage. Behind the screen, I heard his voice. Shueshu, son of Minister of Revenue Shuecheng, has come today to ask for the hand of your second daughter in marriage. Hearing that the person he wanted to marry was my second sister, I knew he had also been reborn. I let out a long sigh. I have no desire to set foot in the treacherous den of the Shui family again. Rumors say the heir of the Pingyang prince is a reckless troublemaker, but the household is simple, and the princess consort is bold and generous. Even though I rejected the prince's marriage proposal in my past life, she still greeted me warmly whenever we met afterward. The prince's household is a suitable match. I am a renowned noble lady in the capital, having learned household management and accounting since childhood. When accompanying my mother to social gatherings, I handle everything with grace, leaving no room for criticism. Due to my excellent reputation in the capital, suitors have come in an endless stream. However, because I am fond of Shueshu, I asked my mother to decline them on my behalf. Shueshu was handsome and quite talented. When I was young, I lost my sachet, and he happened to pick it up. When returning the sachet, he only lowered his gaze and handed it to my maid to pass on to me. There was no inappropriate behavior whatsoever. He embodied the demeanor of a modest gentleman and the grace of a benevolent scholar. Later, I heard that he shone brilliantly at the poetry gathering, and from then on, I fell in love at first sight. We once pledged our lives to each other in secret, and he said he would come to propose once he passed the imperial examination. I thought that marrying the one I loved would lead to nothing but good days ahead. The reality was that the mistress of the Shui family came from the countryside and was secretly mocked by other noble ladies in her youth for being uncouth and vulgar. On the second day after I married Shueshu, I was made to stand on ceremony. After that, I was constantly put through the ringer. He claimed to hand over the household management authority to me. In reality, the Shui family had a meager foundation, and there wasn't much in the storeroom. Whether it's social interactions or managing all the big and small matters at home, everything falls on me to handle. Over time, I had no choice but to use my dowry to make ends meet. If Shueshu had remained devoted to me, and we had loved each other without a doubt, it would have been fine. But just a year after our marriage, his attitude toward me grew indifferent, and the deep affection he showed before our wedding was nowhere to be seen. He said that's just how life is meant to be lived, and I believed him, thinking it would be fine if we were just respectful and courteous to each other. But in the second year of our marriage, he wanted to take a concubine, and the chosen one was a distant cousin his mother had brought into the household a year earlier. It was said that her family wanted his mother to help find her a good match in the capital. After searching high and low, it turned out to be Shueshu who was found. Shueshu said it was just to fulfill the affection between relatives and that he wouldn't let her surpass me in this household. I still have the final say. I believed it and drank the concubine tea offered by my cousin. After the concubine entered the household, Shueshu always made excuses, saying he had matters to attend to and did not want to disturb my rest, so he naturally slept in the concubine's room. 3 months later, the concubine became pregnant, yet after 2 years of marriage, I still had not conceived, no matter how generous or dignified I tried to be. I couldn't help but cry. Shweshu comforted me, saying that the concubine's child could be brought to me to raise. This is no comfort at all, it's clearly meant to make me treat that illegitimate child as if he were the legitimate heir. I have a strong feeling that his relationship with that cousin is far from simple. I had someone investigate and found out that the Shwe family sent the cousin to the capital specifically to become Shweshu's concubine. I was unwilling. But no matter how many medicinal soups I drank, I just couldn't conceive. Another year passed, and I went to seek an audience with the divine physician, who told me there was nothing wrong with my body. He subtly reminded me that if a woman has been unable to conceive for a long time, it could also be the man's problem. Under the pretext of requesting a wellness check, I truly had the divine physician diagnose him, revealing that his kidney essence was insufficient and he was unable to father children. I smiled. Since Shweshu wanted me to raise that child whose biological father was unknown, then I would raise it. I hold a strong grudge. Since the Shwe family treated me as a plaything, I couldn't bear to see them live comfortably. Either. From then on, I became more magnanimous. Once I stopped caring about these trivial matters, I felt much more at ease and lived to the age of 6 to 7, when Shweshu wept by my bedside, saying he wanted to be together again in the next life. I thought to myself, that won't be necessary. Thinking about how Shweshu's sons and grandsons were not of his bloodline, and how the Shwe family would completely change after his death, I even smiled as I passed away. In my previous life, when I wanted to marry Shweshu, you said the Shwe family was not a good place to go. I only hope that you can see things more clearly, and never be able to solve others' worries while ignoring her own sorrows. You want to marry me? You came in from outside the door, wearing a pomegranate-colored dress, her face filled with anger. Shweshu bowed, as if he couldn't see the anger on Ayu's face. He said with a beaming smile, "The second young lady is innocent and lively, with unparalleled beauty. My heart yearns for her." Unexpectedly, Ayu didn't give him any face at all. Pa. A fickle and pedantic scholar, I have always detested people like you the most in my life. Utterly hypocritical. I will never marry you. Ayu has a fiery temper. Since childhood, she has always been the one to stir up trouble, completely opposite to my own nature back then. When Ayu saw how the Shwe family treated me, she immediately wanted to go and beat up Shweshu, but I stopped her. She urged me to divorce and return home to remarry, telling me not to waste the rest of my life in the Shwe family. But I don't have anyone I like anymore. I've grown accustomed to the Shwe family, and if I go to a new place, I'll have to slowly adapt all over again. When I found out that Shweshu was unable to have children and that the entire Shwe family had been deceiving me, I no longer had any patience for the old lady who had been tormenting me all along. Managing the household is fine, but taking money from my private funds is not. Is the family short on money? Well, that's easy. Just tighten your belts and cut back on expenses. At our poorest, a family of 7 shared just 3 vegetarian dishes. What could we do? My husband was merely a poor scholar, not yet in office, and my father-in-law's monthly salary wasn't enough to support such a large family. I was quite helpless too. What? Use my dowry. If this were to spread, and someone at court were to suggest that the entire Shwe family relies on their daughter-in-law's dowry for support, it could potentially affect my father-in-law's career. Actually, the Shwe family isn't that poor. After all, it's the residence of a minister. How could they possibly be unable to afford food? It's all because my mother-in-law deliberately demanded a bunch of tonics just to make things difficult for me. I used to care about this family, so I contributed a lot of my own money. Later, I took that money back, which naturally resulted in a significant outflow of funds. Ayu had already been pulled aside by mother, looking at Shweshu, whose expression was somewhat stiff. I smiled. He sought to marry Ayu simply because she was naive and not as difficult to fool as I am. Seeing that Ayu hadn't made a foolish mistake, I felt reassured and stepped out from behind the screen. Seeing me, my family was all looking at me with concern. Everyone knew how much I liked Shweshu. Ayu walked over, angrily pulling my arm. "You're not allowed to be sad. It's a good thing to see his true colors now, much better than having it exposed after marriage." I looked at this younger sister whom I had always thought was foolish. She is far more perceptive than I am, appearing foolish while being wise. It's just like that. Looking at Shueshu, whose eyes were evasive and dared not meet mine, I remained generous and dignified. Please return, young Master Shui. The daughters of the Ming family will not marry you. Father, have someone invite the people from Pingyang Manor in. Are you as anxious? Even if you're upset, you can't give up on yourself. That prince is notoriously reckless. You can't marry him. Li Hengzhan, I've seen him before. A year ago, when I was out on the street, I was sitting in a carriage and heard a commotion outside. A man was harassing a young girl right there on the street. I was about to have a servant step in to help, when the young man rushed out from the crowd and kicked the man right in the face. I despise scum like you the most, harassing innocent women. I'll beat you to death. The kick sent 2 streams of blood gushing from the man's nose. Furious, the man shouted, "Do you know who I am? How dare you lay a hand on me?" The young man stood with his arms crossed, looking arrogant and unruly. I am Li Hengzhan, the son of the Prince of Pingyang. Now, tell me, who are you? Upon hearing this, the man quickly scurried away in disgrace. Li Hengzhan snorted, raised his hand to brush aside the hair that had been blown askew by the wind, and looked quite pleased with himself. Even after marriage, I would occasionally hear the name Li Hengzhan. He seemed to have a particular grudge against Shueshu. Sometimes, when Shueshu came home with a bruised and swollen face, I would tend to his injuries while listening to him denounce Li Hengzhan for his unwarranted outbursts. At first, I also resented this reckless young man. I resented him for using his status as the heir to harm my husband. Later, Shueshu entered officialdom, and Li Hengzhan also went to the court and secured an official position. By that time, I already knew that Li Hengzhan was unable to have children. Li Hengzhan frequently wrote memorials to attack Shueshu. Today, he criticized him for inviting colleagues to drink, forming cliques for personal gain. Tomorrow, he will be scolded for having stains on his official robe, showing disrespect to the imperial presence. Shueshu was both physically and mentally exhausted, yet he could do nothing about it at that time. My impression of Li Hengzhan improved once again. To speak of Li Hengzhan, he was truly consistent from start to finish. He despised Shueshu and targeted him throughout his entire career at court, to the point of hating the house along with its crows. From his father-in-law down to his son-in-law, he targeted them all equally. I sat on the mountain watching the tigers fight, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. At the time, I only thought that Li Hengzhan was a good person. However, it is worth mentioning that Li Hengzhan never married in his life. In his middle age, he adopted a child from a collateral branch to succeed him. He is in good health, and he was still alive and well when I died. Perhaps it was the good physique he developed from beating Shueshu. Having experienced everything in my past life, no matter what others say, Li Hengzhan is a good person in my memory. A person who is inherently good, even if they don't love you, will not mistreat or humiliate you. If I were to marrying him would be quite good. Shueshu and the matchmaker who came with him were sent out. As he left, he was still extremely puzzled. He couldn't possibly think that a you would want to marry him. Her kindness towards him is entirely because I like him, so she's giving me face. Yet it made him develop such thoughts. It seems I've given him too much face. The servants went to invite the people from the prince's mansion. According to the rules, I cannot be in the front hall, but Sayue can tell me what's happening up front. I just found out that the prince's mansion actually values me so much. Sayue's tone was somewhat excited. Miss, so many people from the Pingyang prince's mansion have come. Leading them was the princess, followed by the Pingyang prince and his wife. There were also some people she hadn't met before, but judging by their attire, they were likely relatives of the prince's mansion. Not counting the servants, there were more than 10 people. Such a grand display startled me, and even Yu was stunned for quite a while. Even the grand princess has come. This would be considered a top-tier event even in the capital. Since the death of her consort, the grand princess has lived in seclusion at her residence and rarely ventured out. But to propose marriage, the royal family invited the princess to come forward. In contrast, Shueshu's attitude towards me was quite obvious. Yet at that time, I was blinded by emotions and couldn't see right from wrong. With my nod of agreement, the marriage was settled without any surprise. The day after the engagement was settled, the princess's residence sent an invitation, inviting me to attend a flower viewing banquet. I had a faint suspicion that this flower viewing banquet was likely arranged for me. Upon arriving at the princess's residence, a maid led me to a pavilion. Seeing the figure of Li Hengzhan, my suspicion turned into certainty. Dressed in a blue brocade robe and wearing a white jade crown, his posture was as upright as a pine tree. For a moment, I actually saw a shadow of Xueshu in him. The last time I saw him, he was wearing fiery red robes, flamboyant and arrogant in demeanor. Seeing me look at his attire, his entire body stiffened. What do you think of my outfit? I pursed my lips and shook my head, his face turning a bit pale. This kind of outfit doesn't suit you. Your usual style looks much better. The ice and snow melted, and spring returned to the earth. He unconsciously took a step forward, then quickly retreated. Do you remember me? I had originally guessed that he might not be very satisfied with this marriage arrangement, but now it doesn't seem that way. We've met. Did you come looking for me today because you want to break off the engagement? No, he immediately denied it. I just want to know, is agreeing to this marriage what you yourself want? What if it is, and what if it isn't? His expression gradually fell. If it weren't for, I would find a way to call off the engagement. Marriage is a major life event, and I wouldn't want you to force yourself into something that makes you unhappy. I couldn't help but purse my lips and smile. Li Hengzhan truly is an exceptionally good person. Seeing me smile, he also grinned, with a touch of simple-mindedness. Looking at this outfit that was completely mismatched with him, I whispered softly, "Don't dress like this again in the future. It looks a bit unlucky." After saying that, I felt a bit of regret. Although we were already engaged, I might have been overstepping a bit. All right, he nodded blankly, which left me somewhat surprised. He clasped his hands behind his back, his gaze fixed on the tips of his feet. "Miss Ming, you don't need to be reserved in front of me. Say whatever you like. I'm glad you can take care of me." The young man's feelings were straightforward and impulsive. Those bright eyes, free from any trace of impurity, were like the sun piercing through the darkness, making my heart unconsciously light up. All those strange peculiarities found their explanation in this moment. "Li Hengzhan, I know your secret. You like me. I don't know when. He saw me, past life, present life. This is the first time he and I have stood face to face. I have a gift for you, a palm-sized sandalwood box, inlaid with a red gemstone." He opened the lid, and on a piece of red silk lay a warm, smooth jade bracelet that looked somewhat familiar. With just one glance, I knew this bracelet was of immense value, not something to be given away casually. Seeing my hesitation, he slapped his forehead in frustration. "Is this too improper of me? Please don't be upset. This is just an ordinary bracelet, nothing special. Before you, only the craftsman has touched it. I haven't touched it either, so it's very clean." I choked up in my throat. He was being far too cautious. "I'm not worried about that. Even if you had touched it, it wouldn't matter. I just think this jade bracelet is truly too precious to accept. If the people of the royal mansion saw him like this, they would surely feel heartache. It's not valuable. For something I give you, I always feel it's not good enough." I took the box. The previous maid reappeared. "Miss Ming, the banquet is about to begin. This way, please." I gave a slight curtsy towards Li Hengzhan. Li Hengzhan grew somewhat anxious. "Miss Ming, wait for me. Wait for me to come and marry you." After saying this, he dared not shift his gaze, keeping his eyes fixed intently on my expression. "All right." Hearing my response, his chest heaved. Though he appeared quite calm on the surface, it wasn't until we reached the corner that I saw him suddenly leap high into the air. Clenching his fists, he stomped his feet silently, grinning so widely that his eyes nearly disappeared. That outfit of his had become nothing but a burden. Li Hengzhan and Xueshu are different. One could say they are polar opposites in temperament. Xueshu is proper, deep and calculating, and skilled at putting on a show. Li Hengzhan is carefree, clear in his likes and dislikes, and wears his heart on his sleeve. I guessed that Li Hengzhan probably liked me. Little did I know that he took this affection so seriously, so much so that after his proposal was rejected, he never married for the rest of his life. In my mind, I recall his eyes sparkling with starlight when I agreed to the marriage. I wonder if those eyes ever brimmed with tears because I married Xueshu. There is no wind in the courtyard, yet the crabapple tree in the corner sways ceaselessly. I had thought the earlier banquet was merely an excuse, fearing that the princess wished to see me alone. Unexpectedly, the maid truly led me to the banquet hall. I had just arrived when the princess appeared, dressed in splendid attire. The majesty of the royal family is not to be looked upon directly. I lowered my head and bowed along with the other noble ladies. Embroidered shoes adorned with Eastern pearls passed before me. A moment later, a voice came from above. No need for formalities, everyone. Please take your seats. The maid led me to the first seat to the right of the princess. This position was undeniably important. The flower viewing banquet concluded without any incident, proceeding very smoothly. As everyone was leaving, a maid said, "Miss Ming, the Princess Royal requests your presence." Following the maid to the pond side, 2 fishing rods were set up there. "I often come here to fish in my spare time. Would you care to join me?" The eldest princess appeared from behind me, and I bowed, saying, "This commoner obeys your command." My wrist was gently supported by a hand that reached out. "You are our Bao's fiancé, so you should follow his lead and call me aunt. We are family, there is no need for such formalities." "Our Bao, is this Li Hengzhan's childhood name? Your Highness is most gracious, but as we are not yet married, it would be improper to disregard etiquette." The person before him chuckled softly. "I have long heard that Prime Minister Ming has 2 daughters, one lively and unruly, always getting into fights, and the other as proper as if she had swallowed a book of rules. Sit down, there are no outsiders here, and I don't wish to abide by these formalities." I saw the Grand Princess lying on a chair, one leg crossed over the other, her sleeves rolled up to her elbows, looking utterly at ease. I had imagined that the widowed Grand Princess would be like the fading light of the setting sun, yet the person before me showed not a trace of sorrow in her entire being. I sat beside her, not lying down like she was, but sitting upright. No one spoke, only the occasional sound of fish tails splashing in the pond. After a while, my lower back inevitably began to ache. "All right, that's enough for today." Not a single fish was caught, so the princess stood up, clapped her hands, and then placed her hands on her hips. "I shall take my leave, Your Highness." "Ashu, may I call you that?" "If Your Highness wishes to address me as such, it is my honor. Our Bao has been coming to my residence since he was a child, so you could say I've watched him grow up. I can tell he genuinely likes you. And I'm not saying this to guilt-trip you or anything, I just want to say he's a good person. If you're willing, perhaps you could try opening your heart to him." I was somewhat taken aback. I knew the princess had kept me behind because she had something to say to me in private. Perhaps she wanted to caution me, or perhaps she simply wanted to have a casual chat. I never expected her to say these things. Although I don't understand what she means by moral kidnapping, it's not hard to grasp her intention. Despite her noble status as the eldest princess, she refers to herself as I in front of me at this moment. She is not a princess, but simply Li Hengzhan's elder. She did not use her authority to pressure from a high position, but offered well-intentioned advice. "Let me give it a try." After leaving the princess's residence, an additional carriage followed behind the main one. A matron came over and said, "This is a gift from Her Highness. There is no need for you to decline, Miss Ming." Once in the carriage, I took the box out from my sleeve. I whispered softly, "I should have seen it before." That night, I had a dream, returning to the day after my wedding in my previous life. After finishing the formalities and returning, Sayue said she had sorted out the gift list and asked me to go to the storeroom to check. Going through them one by one, I discovered a box whose sender was unknown. Sayue opened the box, and inside lay a bracelet. Sayue was puzzled. Could it be that someone below made a mistake and forgot to write it down? Ultimately, there is no way to verify, because without a name, it was not recorded in the warehouse. I took the bracelet along with the box back to my courtyard. I placed it deep in the dressing cabinet and never took it out again. The scene shifts to the day before I passed away. At that time, I was in good health, no different from usual. Sitting in the courtyard basking in the sun, I heard the sound of a maid exclaiming inside the house. Sayue, who had already become an old maid, went to check. A little girl followed behind her, trembling with fear. The maid was cleaning the room and broke a bracelet. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a bit flustered looking at the bracelet shattered into several pieces. I had long forgotten when I had acquired such a piece of jewelry. The little girl, about 10 years old, had a pale face and was kneeling on the ground, knocking her head against the floor with a thud. "I feel a bit reluctant." "Get up, it's not a big deal. Just be more careful in the future." The next day, I passed away. No illness, no disaster, no injury, no pain. As if I had just fallen asleep, I suddenly woke up, clutching my chest and taking a few deep breaths. Picking up the box by the pillow and opening it again, Groping my way to the window, I opened it to find the night as serene as water. The bracelet glowed with a soft, lustrous light, held tightly in both hands. I have only seen this bracelet twice. Once was after marriage, once was before death. This is the third time, yet it is already a matter of the next life. The candlelight in the room was relit, and Sayue came over yawning to drape clothes over me. Miss, be careful not to catch a chill. Sayue, have you ever received an immense favor that you didn't know how to repay? Sayue was a bit puzzled but still replied to me, you know, miss, I was sold into the Prime Minister's mansion because my family was poor. When I was young, all the food at home was reserved for my younger brother, and I often went hungry. A kind-hearted older brother from the neighborhood would occasionally slip me some food, which is how I managed to survive. Back then, I thought he was like a living bodhisattva. I promised myself that when he became an official, I would serve him like an ox or a horse, without even asking for a salary. He was very smart and exceptionally good at studying. He could remember things after just one glance. Everyone in our village regarded him as a child prodigy. Listening to her speak, I suddenly remembered in my previous life, after I got married, one day I happened to hear her hiding in a corner, crying in silence. I asked her what had happened, and she said her benefactor had hanged himself at home after failing the imperial examination. Later, when Sayue reached the age for marriage, I asked her if she wanted to leave the household, but she just shook her head. She spent her entire life accompanying me in the Shui family. Could it be that the benefactor is the neighbor's brother she mentioned? If that person is truly as remarkable as she described, with a photographic memory, even if he couldn't rank among the top 3, he should at least have become a jinsha. Moreover, he must have been quite young at the time. How could he have been so extreme? Because failing the imperial examination meant hanging oneself. What is the name of your benefactor? His name is Zhang Huayan. I heard that his mother spent 5 copper coins to have someone choose this name for him. Seeing her look of admiration, I smiled slightly. Would you like to have your own name? She seemed a bit embarrassed. As a servant, how could I be worthy of having a name? At home, I was just called dog or puppy. Now, being able to stay by your side feels like a dream. I took her hand, silently making a promise in my heart. If there are hidden circumstances, this time, I will let your benefactor survive. The next day at noon, a maid came over. Miss, someone from the royal palace has sent a message. Your and the young master's birth characters are perfectly matched, extremely auspicious. I heard that the birth characters were even matched by the state preceptor. The maid presented a box. This is a commentary. The grand preceptor instructed that only the young lady may read it. I opened the paper, and only 4 sentences were written on it. A predestined match made in heaven, not a single flaw, lacking one. It is difficult to achieve perfection. Regrets from the past are now renewed in this life, holding hands together to share prosperity and glory. I immediately closed the paper. All right, you go and report back to mother first. She can handle everything as she sees fit. Clutching the paper, I hurried back into the room and closed the door. Sayue was shut outside the door. Miss, are you all right? It's fine. You go ahead and attend to your business. Sayue left, and I trembled as I opened it. I read those 4 sentences over and over again until I had them completely memorized. In the end, I lit it with a candle flame and tossed it into the incense burner, where it burned to ashes. Although I often went up the mountain with my mother to worship the Buddha, I never believed in ghosts and gods before my rebirth. Even if I were to start over, I would not dare mention this to anyone. But I never expected that the state preceptor would actually know what had happened to me in my previous life. Shueshu told me that our 8 characters were very compatible. That comment indeed holds true, but if Shueshu and I are truly a cursed match, then there are only 2 possibilities. Either the person who matched our birth characters was just going through the motions, telling everyone who came that it was a match made in heaven, or else Shueshu deceived me in this matter as well. My heart feels heavy right now, and I don't even want to care about the facts. I just want to dump all the blame on Shueshu. He has already done so many bad things. It wouldn't hurt for him to shoulder a little more. I usually act with restraint, but at this moment, I feel an urgent desire to see Li Hengzhan. The door was knocked. Come in. Sayue entered carrying 2 food boxes. Miss, these were just delivered by someone from Baiwei Pavilion. They said they were bought by a young master surnamed Li, all of which are their new delicacies from yesterday. I suspect it was the young master who bought them. But how did he know you like the food from Baiwei Pavilion? She muttered to herself as she took out the food. The young lady has always been proper, never eating at the shop herself, and the servants never mention her name when buying. Yet, the young master actually knows about her habit of trying every new dish she creates. It turned out to be a table full of food. I couldn't help but chuckle. After taking a bite, the earlier jumbled thoughts gradually settled down. The gatekeeper delivered a letter with no name on it. As soon as I opened it and saw the handwriting, I knew it was written by Xue Shu. Ah Shu, meet me at the usual place early tomorrow morning. Miss, whose letter is this? Xue Shu, asking to meet me. Sayua widened her eyes. What, he actually dares to send a letter? She looked at me hesitantly. Miss, you wouldn't. I gently tapped her on the head. Am I the kind of person who likes to keep lingering attachments? Take it and burn it. I wasn't interested in what Xue Shu had to say. It's simply that, seeing no hope in seeking to marry a Yu, he has turned his attention to me, or perhaps he has guessed that I have also been reborn. Xue Shu is no fool. Seeing my attitude so resolute, he should think in this direction. But I will not meet him just to deal with him. I've read a Yu's storybooks, where the woman, with no other choice, goes to see the unfaithful man, only to be set up so that her husband sees them, causing a rift between them. Although it ends happily, it's really unnecessary. I have no interest in such drama. Xue Shu has no evidence, and since he is also a reincarnated person, he wouldn't dare to make things up. After all, in this matter, we are like grasshoppers tied to the same rope. If he were to go mad and start jumping around recklessly, it wouldn't just be me who falls. Time passes quickly, and unless necessary, I generally don't go out. Xue Shu sent a few more letters intermittently. After a glance, finding nothing useful, I burned them all to ashes. The wedding date is set for 2 months from now. It's a bit rushed, but the imperial astronomers say it's the best day of the year. Li Hengzhan sent a letter asking for my thoughts. If I didn't want it to be so soon, he would have someone pick another date. There's no need to worry about anything. Just be happy. Looking at the words on the letter, each sentence sincere and earnest. Though they are plain and unadorned everyday words, yet they warm the heart more than the most beautifully crafted prose. Sayue, grind the ink. Sayue was stunned. Miss, are you going to reply to the young master? You've never corresponded with men outside the family before, so why this time? In Sayue's eyes, my adherence to propriety is ingrained in my very bones. Even during my previous life, when I liked Xue Shu the most, I never once replied to his letters, nor did I ever give him any personal belongings. At most, it's just asking someone to pass on a verbal message. It's different. We've already set a wedding date, so writing a letter isn't a big deal. I didn't write much, just 2 sentences. Marriage involves 2 people, and I don't want Li Hengzhan to constantly accommodate me in every way. Since I know he treasures me like a precious gem, I should not act recklessly and trample on his feelings. An hour later, the messenger boy came in, holding a handful of gold melon seeds. Not daring to move a muscle, I went to deliver the letter, and the gatekeeper invited me inside. Not long after, the young master came running over. When he found out you had written him a letter, he was overjoyed. After reading it, he personally gave me a handful of gold melon seeds, saying he was so happy and told me to come back and share them with all the sisters in the courtyard, so everyone could share in the joy. Since he gave them to you, they are yours. Sayue, take them and distribute them among everyone, and give him a little extra. The servant's expression was filled with excitement. I remember your elderly mother is seriously ill and bedridden, and your father is also advanced in years, unable to do much work. Take this money and live a good life. He immediately kowtowed, tears streaming down his face. Thank you, miss, for your great kindness and virtue. This servant was well-mannered. Knowing that he couldn't embezzle such a large sum of money, he is also very filial, supporting his parents single-handedly without a word of complaint. I only heard about his family matters from Sayue in my previous life. When I learned about this, I had Sayue find some work for him, using it as a pretext to give him a bit of reward money. As soon as he got the silver, he went to the pharmacy that very day to buy medicine for his mother. There are 5 days left until the wedding, and mother said she would take me to the temple to pray for a peace charm. I went to the temple with mother and Yu. Mother went to pray for the peace charm, while Yu and I saw red silk ribbons tied all over the trees. Yu tilted her head and asked me, "Do you want to write a wish?" I heard it's very effective. You write one too, let's do it. Together, I wrote down my wish, and Au quickly climbed up the tree, tying our red ribbons at the very top. A thief stole my money pouch. Miss, catch him quickly. I sensed something was off, but by the time I tried to call out to Au, she had already been lured away. Looking at the person who appeared, a chill involuntarily crept into my brow. Is this your method? Shueshu raised his hand in a salute. Miss Ming, please forgive me. I had no other choice but to do this. I remained silent, keeping a distance of 2 zhong from him. May we speak in private? I chuckled lightly. Surely Mr. Shuer is aware of the principle that a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. This place is crowded, making it most appropriate. If it were just the 2 of us, no matter what nonsense he might spout, I would have no way to prove my innocence. He wouldn't even need to do anything. Just a few words from him would be enough to ruin my reputation. He eagerly approached, only to be grabbed by the collar. The person behind him was half a head taller, and seeing his comical appearance, I lowered my head slightly, afraid I might laugh. What does young Master Shuer wish to say to my fiancé? Why not let me hear it too? Shueshu pulled at his collar. Your Highness, this is a matter between me and Aishu. Hearing him address me like that, I furrowed my brows. He did it on purpose. I looked at Li Hengzhan with concern, afraid that he would be provoked by Shueshu and fall into his trap. Li Hengzhan clenched both hands into fists. Your Highness, I quickly called out to stop him. He let out a heavy sigh, crossed his arms, and looked down at Shueshu with a condescending gaze. Addressing a young lady from a respectable family in such a manner, I wonder which book of sages taught you this etiquette, Mr. Shuer. I will surely pay a visit to Minister Shuer another day to ask if this is a family tradition. Shueshu's face turned pale, gave me a deep look, then hastily clasped his hands in a casual salute before hurriedly departing. Li Hengzhan asked me, "Are you okay? Afraid of creating misunderstandings like in those storybooks?" I said bluntly. He said that on purpose, just to provoke you, to make you hit him. If word gets out, it won't be good for your reputation. Li Hengzhan nodded. I know. You don't like him anymore. I was taken aback by these words, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. I didn't know whether to praise him for his keen insight or feel sorry for him being so humble. It was as if he knew what I was thinking. The room was filled with the buzz of voices, and I heard him say, Miss Ming, you don't need to pity me. The fact that you are willing to marry me is already the greatest blessing I could ever receive. Miss, someone from the palace has arrived. Are they here to deliver rewards again? It's no wonder I said that. Li Hengzhan truly is deeply favored by the royal family. His father is a prince, his aunt is a princess, and his uncle is the emperor. All those princes and princesses are his relatives. He has a good temperament and gets along well with everyone, so, ever since he agreed to the marriage, a continuous stream of rewards has been coming in waves. I had only heard before that Li Hengzhan was the darling of the royal family, and I just listened to it as a spectacle. Now I truly understand the meaning of the word favorite, and I say this not to boast, but as a simple truth. I have indeed benefited greatly from his favor. No, I'm here to deliver the wedding attire. Another person hurriedly arrived outside the door. Miss, someone from the Pingyang prince's residence has arrived, delivering the wedding attire. Indeed, the day after tomorrow is the grand wedding. Li Hengzhan is the heir, so it's only natural that the palace would provide the ceremonial wedding attire. 2 sets of wedding attire were delivered to my courtyard. Looking at the set I made myself on the table, I couldn't help but smile. Since the palace has sent the wedding attire, it will be worn on the day of the grand wedding. I lifted the red cloth covering the wedding dress sent by the Pingyang prince's residence. The bright red wedding gown had round, lustrous pearls fastening both sides of the collar, while the rest of the embroidery was crafted with golden thread. The fabric and materials used were of excellent quality. Since I had made my own wedding dress, I could naturally tell that this entire set was so finely crafted that it couldn't have been completed in just a year or 2. However, the embroidery on the bridal veil was truly unimpressive. The same color as the wedding dress, embroidered with dragon and phoenix bringing good fortune. Although the stitches are fine, it's clear that it's not on the same level as the wedding dress. Why would the royal mansion send this over? Could there have been some mistake? Did the people from the royal mansion leave any message? Yes, that person asked if the young lady's bracelet still fits comfortably. Bracelet? Tia was puzzled. I asked the young lady a question, but she left without giving an answer. Her fingers gently stroked the embroidery thread, and as she thought of something, the corners of her lips lifted slightly. That day, when she parted with Li Hengzhan, he had said something, "Miss Ming, in a few days, I will give you a gift. I hope you won't laugh at me when you see it." I waited and waited, but it never came. I thought he had forgotten, and strangely, I felt an inexplicable sense of loss, seeing this bridal veil. The image of him carefully holding a needle and thread to embroider came to mind. Perhaps, at the very beginning, her fingertips were covered in needle pricks. For someone who had never touched embroidery before, achieving such skill was extremely difficult. On the day of the grand wedding, just before stepping out, I asked Sayue to help me put on that bridal veil. Sayue muttered, "This bridal veil really isn't very good. Why would the young lady want this?" Muttering to herself, she placed it over my head. "I have no elder brother. So you insisted on carrying me out the door. You is a bit taller than me, but today I'm dressed heavily, so I'm not light at all." Lying on her back, she carried me steadily without any swaying. I heard her voice calm, with a hint of choking back tears. "Sister, I don't know what you were thinking, marrying the crown prince. I've always thought your judgment wasn't great. First that hypocrite, now this scoundrel. But whatever you do, I'll support you. If he ever acts up, we can just divorce. You'll always be my sister, always the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister's household." I couldn't help but laugh. Even at a time like this, she still had to get a few jabs in at me. I held her by the neck. "You, take good care of our parents and yourself. Don't worry about me. Your sister isn't foolish. If times get tough, I'll find a way." In my previous life, aside from some emotional wounds at the beginning, the rest of the time was quite comfortable. After all, my father was the prime minister, and my mother was a general since I was little. My mother has told me, "Shu, you can be a rule-abiding person, but never be a rigid one. Learn that nothing matters more than your own peace of mind." I have always kept these words in my heart, so, in truth, I am not the person the world sees me as. I only follow the rules with those who abide by them. As a result, in my previous life, my mother-in-law, Xue Shu, the concubine, and the illegitimate son were all unable to cause any trouble. As for my father-in-law, he was a stubborn man, with his mind solely focused on government affairs. You carried me onto the bridal sedan chair, with the sounds of drums and gongs accompanying us all the way. By the time we reached the wedding chamber, my neck was already quite sore. "This headdress is really a bit heavy." I had just entered when Li Hengzhan came into the room. "Why have you come? You should be outside entertaining the guests. I make friends in my daily life." Precisely to avoid drinking today, he gently lifted the veil, his eyes brimming with unconcealed joy. Li Hengzhan had the servants oversee the completion of all tasks before dismissing everyone. Before they had even left, he pulled me to sit by the bedside. "You must be tired today," he said as he helped me remove all the hairpins from my head. He untied my hair, and my scalp felt instantly relieved. Even though I've lived 2 lifetimes, I still felt a bit flushed at this moment. He helped me clean off my makeup and then had a table full of dishes set out, all of which were my favorites. I'd rather have dinner with my wife than drink with them. When he mentioned the word wife, he also felt a bit awkward and blushed. Today, Li Hengzhan looked exceptionally handsome. He was already good-looking to begin with, but in this red outfit, he appeared even more dashing. He eagerly served me dishes, afraid I might miss a single bite. As I chewed slowly, I listened to him sigh with emotion. "It's wonderful." I looked up at him and saw him holding chopsticks in one hand, while the other rested on the table, propping up his chin, just watching me. "What's so good?" "It's wonderful that you married me." He wore a silly grin on his face. "Since I was young, I've always felt lucky. Now it seems that the Bodhisattva must have taken special care of me." The state preceptor was right. Destined people will always find each other, no matter how many twists and turns they take. I paused briefly, pretending it was unintentional. You've chatted with the state preceptor." He nodded. "That bracelet, actually, I asked the state preceptor to bless it for me." The state preceptor studied at the Gathering Immortals Valley and is said to have emerged into the world for the sake of Great Yang's national fortune. He truly has real skills. At the time, I told the state preceptor about my feelings, and he told me this. He said that although there would be twists and turns between us, there would definitely be a good outcome. I didn't dare believe it before. My ears buzzed, my mind completely filled with his words. May I meet the state preceptor? I have long heard of the esteemed name of the state preceptor. yet have never had the chance to meet him. It is truly a regret, Li Hengzhan readily agreed. That's simple enough. Tomorrow, after we serve tea to my parents, I will take you into the palace to express our gratitude. We can then go to the stargazing terrace, where the state preceptor usually stays. The next day, Li Hengzhan and I had just arrived at the stargazing terrace. A young Taoist acolyte approached. Princess consort, the state preceptor has prepared hot tea. This way, please. Li Hengzhan was delighted. The state preceptor is truly a master, to know this already. The acolyte raised his hand. Your Highness, the state preceptor has said he will only see the crown princess. Please wait downstairs. Your Highness, he gave an awkward smile. Well, then take the crown princess upstairs. I looked at him, and he waved his hand dismissively. Go on, don't be afraid. The state preceptor is very easy to get along with, a kind old man, not scary at all. He really is something. To say such a thing in front of the disciples of the state preceptor is truly a bit too casual. The stargazing tower has 9 floors in total, and following the Daoist acolyte, they arrived at the entrance to the 9th floor. Please go up, princess consort, the state preceptor is waiting above. The 9th floor was simply furnished. The state preceptor sat cross-legged on a cushion. Seeing me arrive, he poured a cup of hot tea and placed it opposite him. Have a seat. His face was aged, yet his spirit was vigorous. With a head full of white hair and a white beard on his chin, he wore a set of white robes, exuding an air of immortal grace. I sat on the cushion opposite him and drank a cup of tea. He also picked up his cup, though no steam rose from it. The fragrance of wine wafted through the air. He laughed heartily. I don't care for tea. I've had a fondness for fine wine since I was young. He drained the cup of wine in one gulp. I know you have doubts in your heart. Ask away, sir. I want to know why I have been reborn into this life. Because this is the path you were originally meant to take. You went astray before, and your destinies are intertwined. If you were wrong, his path was naturally wrong as well. That was not the path he was meant to follow. Your Excellency means that the reason I was reborn into this life is because the Crown Prince's fate was altered, and the state preceptor, who usually avoids worldly affairs, was willing to defy the heavens to change his destiny. My hands beneath my sleeves unconsciously clenched. In other words, the Crown Prince is no ordinary person. He will influence many things. Correct. That is the reason Your Excellency has come to Great Yang. You are a clever woman, Crown Princess. Her pupils contracted slightly, her heart pounding as if about to leap out of her chest. Since I have been given a second chance, it means things have already reached a point of no return. May I know what happened in my previous life? Why has Shueshu also been reborn? The state preceptor shook his head. This is a divine secret. I can say no more, or I will surely die. As for young Master Shui, he is here to bear the consequences. His tone carried a hint of jest, but I knew that to have come this far, he must have paid a great price. Let me ask one final question. How old did Li Hengzhan live to in his previous life? The state preceptor sighed softly. Red beauty turns to white bones, returning to dust. How can this body bear to walk alone again? Go on, it's not easy for you two to be together. Remember, Crown Princess, fate has its own course. There's no need to worry or fear, for eventually, the path will lead to brightness. As I went down, my hands and feet felt a bit cold until I reached the corner of the stairs on the 2nd floor. I saw Li Hengzhan standing below. When he saw me, he immediately smiled. He rushed up to support me in a few quick steps. Are you tired? This stargazing tower is a bit too high. Do you want me to carry you on my back? I held his hand, warmth returning to my body. Let's go home. Sitting in the carriage, I watched Li Hengzhan diligently massaging my calf. Li Hengzhan, if I were to die someday, what would you do? He froze for a moment, then quickly relaxed. He said in a light tone, then I'll die with you. I'll live one day longer than you, kill everyone who has hurt you, arrange the aftermath, and buy a larger coffin that can hold both of us. After all that, I'll come find you. Remember to walk slowly on your way, and wait for me. After finishing his monologue, he didn't hear my response for a long time, so he quickly crouched in front of me to apologize. Did I scare you? I was talking nonsense. Don't take it to heart. I won't kill anyone. I've never even killed a chicken in my life. How could I possibly kill a person? I hugged his neck. I'm not angry. I just feel sorry for you. Why do you value me more than your own life? Li Hengzhan, when have you ever seen me? I didn't question his words because he had already done so when I passed away peacefully. He took his own life just to catch up with me on the road to the underworld, but he didn't know whether there are ghosts after death, or if he could catch up with me. Even if he did, I might still not recognize him. Li Hengzhan noticed my emotional distress and gently patted my back, just like when my mother used to soothe me to sleep as a child. The first time I saw you was at a banquet held by the Marquis of Chongping's residence when I was a child. I found a sachet and didn't know who had lost it. Shueshu said he knew the owner. After I gave him the sachet, I felt a bit uneasy and followed him. That's when I saw the two of you talking. He felt somewhat frustrated. I knew he had deceived me. All these years, I've been regretting it. If I hadn't trusted him so easily, maybe you and he wouldn't have met. Maybe the person you would have met would have been me. I was just too foolish. So that's how it was. So early on, Shueshu was already deceiving me. I should have recognized Li Hengzhan. He blames himself. But how can he be blamed? I pride myself on being clever, yet I was still deceived by Shueshu's deliberate gentleness. Somewhat fortunately, I have lived a long life at night. While Tsayue was away, I said to Li Hengzhan, I would like to ask you to help me investigate someone named Zheng Huayan, who lives in Huaihua Village, Qingxi County. He is a scholar, and I want to know about his life, temperament, and family situation. All right, he agreed with great decisiveness. Aren't you going to ask what I want to do? If you want to tell me, you'll naturally tell me. If you don't say it, there's a reason you're not saying it. He took my hand, very solemnly. You can just tell me directly what you want me to do. No need to say please. It makes me sad. I hope you can order me around without any burden. I glared at him. I also don't like how you often belittle yourself to the point of being worthless in front of me. Could you change that? He couldn't stop laughing. Are you feeling sorry for me? My lady, I'm glad, but there's no helping it. I can't change. I just love doting on you, and I enjoy it. In my eyes, you are the most important. I was at a loss for words. I felt sorry for him, yet he was perfectly content. He rolled his eyes. But since you feel sorry for me, then tonight, immediately reached out to cover his mouth. Don't talk nonsense. The palm was brushed by a warm, moist, and slippery sensation. I was both embarrassed and angry. But since the carriage was on the road, I could only lower my voice. Li Hengzhan, he covered his chest, unable to contain his joy, then cupped my face and showered me with kisses. My lady, how can you be so utterly charming? On the day of the homecoming visit, my father had specifically taken leave from work. The moment my mother saw me, her eyes welled up with tears. You pulled me aside and whispered, "Are you okay? How did he treat you? Did he bully you? He even helped me down from the carriage just now." You curled her lips. What if he was just putting on a show for us? You can't judge a person by their appearance. She examined me carefully. But you really don't seem to have suffered. In fact, you seem to be doing quite well. Turning to look at Li Hengzhan, he seemed to be deliberately putting on an air of steadiness in front of my father. Even the length of his steps was carefully measured. You should know, he's always been carefree and informal, even in front of His Majesty during the meal. Li Hengzhan seemed to have his seal lifted again. He didn't eat a single bite himself, too busy putting food on my plate, leaving the other three people completely stunned. I felt a bit embarrassed, but he remained completely unaware. Why aren't you all eating? Too familiar. My mother's eyes lit up, and she gave me a satisfied wink. I knew it. He likes this kind of person. My mother is a military officer. When she was young, she went to battle, risking life and death, and her style of doing things was quite bold. Later, she earned military merit, and as she reached marriageable age, she was forced to return to the capital. At that time, my father had already entered the Hanlin Academy. My mother fell in love with my father at first sight during a palace banquet, and the emperor asked my mother what reward she desired. My mother pointed at my father and asked the emperor, "Does this esteemed official have a spouse? If not, could you bestow him upon me?" My mother told me that at that time, my father was so frightened that he dropped his cup, shattering it into pieces all over the floor. My father happened to be unmarried at the time and was quite fond of a woman as bold and spirited as my mother, so he agreed. At that time, my father was the envy of everyone in the capital, because my maternal grandfather was a first-rank general at the time. My mother, as his youngest daughter, was doted on from a young age. To my father, my mother married beneath her station. But my mother chose my father from among a group of talented young nobles, which can be said to have caused quite a stir. Thus, they mocked my father for marrying a shrew, a fierce woman my father didn't care at all about being. Scolded himself. But when he heard someone insult my mother, the man who had been a scholar for decades rolled up his sleeves and threw a punch. My mother likes people who are good-looking and have no ill intentions. Li Hengzhan fits this description perfectly. Back at the prince's mansion, Li Hengzhan's guard handed him an envelope. He took me back to the courtyard and handed me the letter. This contains everything you wanted to investigate. I skimmed through it briefly, and indeed, the Zheng Huayan mentioned in the letter was just as Caiyue had described. Zheng Huayan is now a provincial graduate, and he only needs to pass the spring examination this year to become a tribute scholar. If he were even more capable and became a jinsha, the letter mentioned that Zheng Huayan was an only child, with loving parents who cared for him deeply. He had a cheerful personality, and everyone in the village spoke highly of him. There was also a piece of paper with a portrait of Li Hengzhan, who indeed looked quite handsome. The previous suspicion dissipated, replaced by a chilling heart, because I remembered a small incident from my previous life. At that time, I went out of the city to offer incense and passed by the government office, where I heard a woman holding a blood-written letter crying out for justice. The woman, looking to be in her 40s, knelt outside, each word she spoke dripping with blood. My son was killed just after taking the imperial examination. I beg you, sir, to find the culprit and bring justice for my son. At that moment, a commoner passed by the carriage, clicking his tongue and shaking his head. Another scholar. Why is it that every time the imperial examination ends these past 2 years, a few people end up dead? At the time, I could only lament the unpredictability of life. Now that I think about it, a terrifying thought suddenly rises in my heart. Perhaps it was not an accident, but a shocking case of imperial examination fraud. The imperial examination is crucial for selecting talent for a nation. If someone were to engage in widespread fraud during the exams, I never heard of it being uncovered before my death. That must involve something significant, not something I can afford to provoke. Li Hengzhan looked at me with concern. What's wrong? I shook my head. It's fine. The paper in my hand was crumpled into a ball. Your Highness, the princess consort is looking for you. Li Hengzhan looked at me, and I smiled gently. Go ahead, I'm fine. I was somewhat unsure of how to face it in today's capital. My father is the head of all officials, and my husband is considered a member of the royal family. I fear getting involved with either side. Caiyue brought in some pastries. Miss, these were sent from the kitchen. They say it's a recipe from the palace, and it's absolutely delicious, Caiyue said. Unable to hold back a gulp, I picked up a pastry and stuffed one into her mouth. She quickly chewed, her eyes sparkling with delight. Watching her happy expression, I thought of how she had cried her eyes out in her previous life, and my heart was torn with conflict. Caiyue, there's something I've been keeping to myself. I might have uncovered a bit of the truth, but I'm afraid to dig deeper. I'm scared it will ruin the peaceful life we have now. But if I don't do anything, I feel deeply unsettled. I think of Caiyue, of Zheng Huayan in the prime of his youth yet strangled to death. I think of that middle-aged woman who lost her son. I think of those innocent students who died. Caiyue wipes her hands. Miss, I don't understand any grand principles. I suppose what you're asking is whether it's better to have peace of body or peace of mind. I can't speak for others, but if it were me, if I had something weighing on my heart that I couldn't let go of, I'd be trapped in that matter for the rest of my life. For me, that would be worse than death. If I did it, at least I would have accomplished one thing. Otherwise, I'd have neither done the deed nor lived well. What a loss that would be. If Li Hengzhan has his fate to bear, and Xueshu has his karma to repay, then perhaps I too have my own path to walk. Perhaps this is the greater significance of my return, to restore a sliver of peace to the world. I still remember when I was young, my father taught me, the weight of a great nation lies in its land and its people, in the countless lives of its citizens. Those who serve as officials must consider the well-being of the people as their duty. Only then can they live up to their conscience and the official robes they wear. I believe my father has not forgotten these words. If this matter is related to him, as his daughter, I will certainly atone for it with him. As for the members of the royal family, as the rulers of this land, they should not treat human lives as worthless. Li Hengzhan really likes to stick to me. Wherever I go, he follows. Even when I'm painting in the study, he insists on staying by my side, sometimes pouring me tea, sometimes feeding me pastries. If this continues, I'm going to get fat. Li Hongjian didn't mind at all. In life, food, clothing, shelter, and transportation, food comes first, which tells us that no matter how vast the world is, eating is the most important thing. Besides, I think my wife is still a bit too thin right now. He spoke with increasing enthusiasm, earnestly gesturing around my waist. You are indeed too thin. You need to gain some weight. You also shouldn't sit all day long, as that can easily make you short of breath after just a few steps and prone to illness. How about this? Starting tomorrow, I'll teach you some 5 animal exercises or something similar. Practice them daily, and you'll live a long and healthy life. I wanted to say that such behavior is not befitting of a noble lady, but then I thought of you and my mother. They both practice martial arts, and indeed, they are in excellent health and rarely fall ill. Swallowed back the words of refusal. If I'm going to learn, then I'll learn. In this lifetime, I'll strive to live a little longer. Thinking of Zheng Huayan, I need to go back home. Tomorrow, I have to go back home again. Could it be? It doesn't sound good for a married woman to return to her parents' home every other day. I just went back today, and I have to go back again tomorrow. I'm afraid people might gossip about the Wang family. Sure, it would be even better if you stayed for 10 days or half a month. I'd like to spend more time in your courtyard. Alright, I was overthinking it. On the way home, I caught a glimpse of the outside world through the fluttering curtain of the carriage. With the imperial examination approaching, many scholars from out of town are flocking to the capital. The streets are filled with people in long robes, their eyes filled with longing for the capital. They come here full of hope, but have they ever imagined that they might lose their lives in this place? Brother Huin, I didn't expect to run into you here. Where are you staying? Stop the carriage. The carriage came to a halt. I lifted the curtain to look over, and Li Hongjian followed my gaze. The man in the blue robe had a clear and upright gaze as he bowed slightly to the other person. Brother Zayu, I'm staying at the Tongfu Inn. How about you, Brother Zayu? The man named Zayu wrapped an arm around his shoulder, laughing with great abandon. I'm at the Tongfu Inn too. I told you we were fated, didn't I? I asked you to come with me earlier, but you wouldn't listen. Now look, we've run into each other again. The two of them left together, and Li Hongjian waved his hand, signaling the guard to approach. Was that just now Zheng Huayan? That's him. Li Hongjian raised his hand, and the guard stepped aside. I pulled down the curtain. Let's go to the Prime Minister's residence. Fortunately, I had specifically asked Sayue to stay at the mansion today to help me sort out the dowry. I never expected to run into Zheng Huayan. If Sayue had been here, she would have recognized him at a glance. With Xueshu as a precedent, I won't easily trust others based on their appearance and demeanor. If Zheng Huayan turns out to be two-faced, once he learns about my relationship with Sayue, it might lead to some trouble. It's not that I don't trust Sayue, but she has an extraordinary level of trust in this neighbor brother. I'm afraid she might be taken advantage of. After staying at home for a while and chatting with mother, you came running in from outside the door. Why didn't you let me know in advance that you were coming? I had no idea. What if I had come back late and missed you? She drank a cup of tea, fanning her face with her hand, with fine beads of sweat on her forehead and the tip of her nose. My mother said with a smile, "You go wild everywhere when your sister isn't around. Only she can keep you in check." You shook her head. "Don't talk about me. Grandfather said that you were even wilder than me when you were young. I learned all this from you. Did you come back to see your father for something?" I looked at her in surprise. She glared at me shyly. "What kind of look is that? I'm quite smart too, you know." Her tone was unnatural. "Did Lee have any objections to you running back like this?" My mother slapped the back of her head. "No manners. Either call him young master or brother-in-law. How can you be so disrespectful?" You looked at me, her eyes filled with grievance. I smiled slightly and rubbed her head. "Mother is right. You really are a bit unruly. It's fine with the young master, but if outsiders were to hear, they might say our family's daughter has no manners at all." She pouted. "I already said I'm not foolish. Why would I talk nonsense outside?" As soon as the words fell, the maid entered from outside the door. "Madam, the Prime Minister has returned and is in the study first." I stood up. "I'm going to find my father." You stay with mother." At the study door, the servant was about to greet me, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Cough, Cough, cough, a. Cough came from the study when I entered. My father was covering his mouth with a fist, while his other hand held a brush, writing something. Father, he put down the brush and smiled at me. I heard from the servants at the door that you had returned. Did something happen? He then coughed twice. I hurried over to pour him a cup of hot tea. Why didn't you take a few days off to rest when you fell ill? He drank it, his brow furrowing involuntarily. How could I rest? The spring imperial examinations are approaching, and there are many complicated matters. The officials can't make decisions on a lot of things. He shook his head. I was massaging his shoulders. They are officials, and father is also an official. If father has to worry about everything, what use are they? My father was amused by my somewhat resentful words. Some of the new officials who have risen in recent years are indeed quite incompetent, not as good as when I was young. I spoke as if by chance, in a casual manner. My daughter once read a story in a book. The man in the story was a poor scholar, a promising talent in academics since childhood. He excelled from the counter-level exams all the way to the metropolitan examination, renowned far and wide as a genius. Yet, his name was absent from the list of successful candidates. Believing himself gifted and intelligent, he thought that even if he didn't rank at the top, he shouldn't have been left off the list entirely. So, he went to strike the grievance drum, endured a beating, and stood before His Majesty, reciting his essay word for word from memory. Upon investigation, it was discovered that his essay had been attributed to someone else. It turned out that someone had taken bribes, manipulated the process in secret, and stolen another's scholarly honor. My father stroked his beard. You needn't worry about such things. His Majesty places the highest importance on the spring examinations. Every year, he personally oversees the grading of the papers. For so many years, this has never changed. Even during the reign of the previous emperor, such meticulous care was not taken. But it's indeed something we should look into, just in case. After hearing what my father said, I remained silent all the way back. Could it be that I was really mistaken, and all those were just accidents? Back at the royal residence, I sat by the windowsill, staring out the window without blinking. From dawn till dusk, I sat there. Li Hongzhan personally brought over some pastries. You haven't eaten dinner either. What happened? Tell me about it. I might be able to help you. Madam, you and I are husband and wife. You can trust me. I withdrew my gaze and turned to look at him. Can you tell me what you know about the people in the palace? Completely and truthfully, I don't trust my husband, but I trust Li Hongzhan. He is carefree and straightforward. His Majesty is well, the Empress is well, and the princes and princesses are all well. Just as I was about to feel disappointed at not being able to ask anything more, he gently scratched my palm with his finger. His expression was serious, completely opposite to the lightness in his tone. A terrifying thought rose in my heart. Li Hongzhan was being watched, and even in his own home. He dared not speak freely, yet he was the heir, and his father was the only prince in the court. Who else could make him so fearful? Unless it was that person. I held his hand, unable to stop trembling. Madam, please eat something, or you'll be hungry later at night. Sensing the hidden meaning in his words, I took the pastry and slowly ate it. Li Hongzhan is the person he shows truly who he is. Li Hongzhan and I fell asleep in each other's arms. In the dead of night, he pulled me up, lifted the bedboard, and revealed a secret passage underneath. Holding his hand, I descended below, and he closed the bedboard, leading me deeper inside. At the very end was a secret room, containing some swords, weapons, books, and a bed. This place is known only to you and me in the entire world. He pulled me onto the bed, tucked me in, and covered me with the blanket. Someone is watching you. He paused briefly, then chuckled softly. My lady is astute. I can't help but feel that Li Hongzhan now is quite different. Tell me about it, your story, what you fear, the things buried deep in your heart. You must have heard, my lady, that there was a rebellion in the imperial palace back then. The emperor quelled it single-handedly, and on his deathbed, the late emperor left a decree ordering His Majesty to ascend the throne. That is the story of how the emperor came to power. I am aware of all these events. Though I was young at the time, my father held a high position, so naturally, I heard about them. He changed the subject, but in truth, that is not how it happened. The real story is that the rebellion back then was actually instigated by the emperor himself. The name on the succession edict was not his. He forged the decree, and the late emperor died by his hand. My back was drenched in cold sweat, and my blood seemed to freeze. How did you know? He held me tightly, wrapping me completely in his embrace. Because I was there, I was in the late emperor's bedchamber at that time, and I witnessed everything with my own eyes. I hid under the bed for 3 whole days, and finally, when no one was paying attention, I crawled back home through a dog hole under the palace wall. Ever since then, I've felt like someone has been watching me. It's not hard to guess. Just ask around casually, and you'll find out I entered the palace that day. I had no choice but to play dumb. I have seen the true imperial edict left by the late emperor, but its whereabouts are unknown. I recall the rumors circulating among the people. His Majesty was originally an obscure and overlooked figure among the princes. Later, those princes either died or were demoted, which allowed him to rise to prominence. Do you know who His Majesty's birth mother was? She was a dancer from the Kingdom of Yu, without any official rank, and she died after giving birth to the child. A person from the Kingdom of Yu, such an important matter, and no one knew about it. What else do you know? I want to know everything. He continued speaking. Your Majesty and the Empress do not get along well. Although there are many couples who maintain appearances while being at odds in their hearts, I find it quite strange because the Empress used to have a very good relationship with him. The change between them occurred in the year the Crown Prince was appointed. That year, the Crown Prince was 15 years old, and it was the 3rd year of His Majesty's reign. Logically speaking, if there was a son in the family, the Crown Prince should have been appointed as soon as His Majesty ascended the throne. After all, the position of the Crown Prince is also the foundation of the court. Indeed, if there is no Crown Prince, those with ill intentions will seek to stir up trouble for their own gain. But if the Crown Prince is appointed early, even if something happens to His Majesty, the Crown Prince can step in to take charge, not to the point of causing chaos in the court and bringing disaster to the world. Later, His Majesty still appointed a Crown Prince, but from that day on, except when necessary, the Empress almost never met with His Majesty and never left the cunning palace. As if I took over his words, as if she had imprisoned herself. He nodded. The Empress and His Majesty were childhood sweethearts. Back then, the Empress was the daughter of a 3rd-rank official. Although she couldn't compare to a prince, His Majesty was often overlooked and bullied in the palace. The Empress once helped him, and later they married. They were quite affectionate. But they only had the Crown Prince as their child. The other princes and princesses were all born to His Majesty and his other consorts. At this point, he immediately swore an oath. Don't worry, in this life, the next life, and the life after that, I want only you. I will not take a wife, take concubines, have any intimate attendants, or visit places of pleasure. I am different from those people. I emerged from his embrace and sat up. Li Hengzhan, I want to tell you something. He propped himself up with his hands, his eyes fixed on me, waiting for me to speak. I had a dream. In it, Tsayue told me that her benefactor had died, hanging himself after the imperial examination. I also dreamed of other scholars who died mysteriously after taking the exam. So, after waking up, I asked you to investigate for me. I suspect that there is fraud in the imperial examination, and it involves His Majesty. I pursed my lips, feeling somewhat uncertain, very bold, one might even say earth-shattering. But that is what I suspect, combining what my father and Li Hengzhan have told me. Moreover, if it weren't such a serious matter, would the state preceptor have willingly sacrificed himself to let me return with my memories? What if it really is him? What if we bring trouble upon ourselves? He gently patted the back of my hand. Don't be afraid, I'll handle everything. But, I'd rather I was wrong. If it's true, then I dare not imagine what kind of tragic events actually unfolded in my previous life. No wonder the state preceptor said Li Hengzhan was that person. It turns out that he was a first-hand witness, an observer, and also a victim. All these years, he could only hide his true feelings and live as the person wanted him to be. All the affection and care were nothing but lies. Beneath the sugarcoating, there was only a sharp blade. If Li Hengzhan showed the slightest sign of something amiss, that sharp blade would slice through his throat. Li Hengzhan, you must have had a hard life all these years. He held me tightly in his arms. Not at all. How could being a playboy be hard? Besides, being able to marry you is something I wouldn't even dare to dream of. He said it lightly. But how could I not have guessed? A sensitive and precocious child, having experienced such a terrifying event, could tell no one and dared not speak of it. Sometimes, nightmares might come, waking in the dead of night with no one to confide in, and so it was hidden for many years. Hidden until even he himself believed he was truly just a carefree, pleasure-seeking prince. Li Hengzhan, if you were given a choice, would you choose stability or adventure? He asked. If you choose stability, what would you lose? If you choose adventure, what would you gain? He is truly clever. I don't know either. It could be peace in the world, countless lives, or perhaps something else. Ash, am I in your dreams? What am I like? I suddenly looked up at him. His gaze was calm, carrying a hint of a smile, and those clear eyes were like an arrow piercing through the sky, striking straight into my heart. You entered the court, living a peaceful and stable life. You were in good health and lived a very, very long time, just without you, right? Ash, did you come for me? I should have known earlier. You suddenly chose me. Something big must have happened. You must have been hurt. What a pity. The me in your dreams didn't protect you. I turned my face away, my nose tingling with sourness, my eyes growing hot, and a scalding tear fell. He raised his hand, and the tear blossomed in his palm. I rested my head against his chest, my hands clutching the fabric at his waist. Li Hengzhan, how can you be so good that I don't know how to repay you? Then living a long and happy life is the best way you can repay me. I stepped back, and he raised his hand, taking out a soft handkerchief from his chest to wipe away my tears. Ashu, if it's what you want, then it's what I want. If you desire stability, I will give you a lifetime of peace. If you seek peace of mind, I will do everything in my power to fulfill your wishes. I have already gained a lifetime of peace this time. I want the truth to know about the innocent people who lost their lives and the state preceptor who paid the price. I cannot enjoy this with a clear conscience. Since the state preceptor has placed high hopes in us, it proves that we are the ones to break the deadlock in a high position. I cannot stand idly by. Help me, help them, help yourself too. If he could change the current situation, perhaps he could truly be himself, save that helpless and fearful Li Hengzhan from his childhood. The next day, Li Hengzhan entered the imperial palace. That afternoon, the eunuch arrived with the imperial edict. This is to appoint Li Hengzhan as the deputy minister of the imperial clan court. Li Hengzhan happily accepted the decree and slipped a bulging pouch to the eunuch. He then turned around and showed off the imperial decree to me. I told you Uncle Emperor cares for me. You said I was idle at home, so now I'm going to be an official. Let's see what else you can say about me. He stood with his hands on his hips, looking quite pleased with himself. I watched as the eunuch walked to the door and glanced in this direction. Did you go to ask His Majesty for an official position? Li Hengzhan said proudly. I am, after all, a prince's son, and now that I'm married, if I still don't have a proper job, wouldn't I be laughed at? I went to ask my uncle the emperor this morning. It must have been quite a challenge for your majesty to go to such lengths to find him such a respectable position that doesn't involve any real power. I understand Li Hengzhan's intentions. Only by standing in the midst of the whirlpool can one identify the root of the problem. He is using himself as a pawn in this game. Then you must perform your duties diligently, and be careful not to let anyone catch any faults that could be used against you before His Majesty. In his previous life, Li Hengzhan entered the court only after Shueshu had already begun his official career. It was because of me this time. He has entered the court much earlier, still for my sake. He pinched my wrist, and I looked up to meet his gaze. Of course, since I've chosen to do this, I'll do it well. I won't let anyone bully me so easily. Who do you think I am? I'm the only heir of the entire Great Yang. Even though he was the one who had fallen into the mud, he still comforted me, telling me not to worry. I gripped his hand tightly. Li Hengzhan, if you're not afraid, then I'm not afraid either. If we really have to pay a price, I'll face it with you. Li Hengzhan became busy, while I stayed at home and carefully thought through all the events of my past life. Seer enters. Miss, with so many scholars coming to the capital recently to take the spring imperial examinations, I heard from the servants that tea houses in the city are constantly filled with scholars gathering to compose poetry and discuss philosophy. It's quite lively. Do you want to join in the excitement? She gives an embarrassed chuckle, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her clothes. Young lady knows, I am most curious about these things, but those are places for scholars. As a woman and a servant, I cannot go. Confucius said, in teaching, there should be no distinction of classes. It is only natural that you yearn for such things. You have been by my side since childhood, and you have read many books and learned many principles. If you wish to go, then go. There is no law in this dynasty that says women cannot listen to others discuss scriptures and doctrines. A smile blossomed on her face. Then, could the young lady accompany me? I am afraid to go alone. I found it somewhat amusing in all these years she's been by my side. Even if I had lived to the end of my previous life, I never once heard her say she was afraid. Yet, it turns out she's actually scared of crowded places. In my previous life, after marrying into the Shui family, both Tsayue and I were kept busy with the duty of being filial to my mother-in-law. She naturally had little opportunity to pay attention to such things. Perhaps in her previous life, she also wanted to go, but given my circumstances at the time, she never brought it up. Although I am the daughter of the Prime Minister, I was once harmed by a maid in my childhood, nearly leading to my kidnapping. At that time, Tsayue risked her life to protect me, so I later arranged for the other maids to serve elsewhere. I kept only Tsayue by my side as a trusted confidant in my previous life. After marrying into the Shui family, Tsayue saw that the Shui family members were all hypocrites. Crying, she apologized to me, saying she hadn't properly investigated what kind of person Shueshu was. If she had known, she wouldn't have let me marry Shueshu. I felt both amused and touched. She was just a young girl. How could I expect her to know things that even I didn't know? She devoted herself to accompanying me for a lifetime, more than my parents and you ever did in this world. She is the one who has stayed with me the longest. How could I bear to refuse such a small request from her? Seeing me nod, she was filled with joy. Miss, I dare not hide it from you, but there is another reason I want to go out. I've mentioned my neighbor's brother to you before, haven't I? I'm thinking that if nothing unexpected happens, he should be taking part in the spring imperial examination this year. I just thought, how wonderful it would be if I could run into him. Seeing her expression, I didn't want to disappoint her. If we meet, then we meet. I doubt Zheng Huayan would dare to do anything anyway. When we were about to leave, Tsayue went back to her room for a moment. When she returned, she was holding a bulging money pouch, which she tucked into her bosom and patted with her hand. Are you planning to give all this money to Zheng Huayan if you happen to run into him? Tsayue nodded emphatically. If it weren't for him giving me food when I was little, I wouldn't have survived until today. His family isn't very well off either, although he passed the provincial exam and the county magistrate will surely give him some silver. A poor family on a long journey needs extra funds. The expenses in the capital are high, and if he's going to take the imperial examination, he shouldn't have to endure too much hardship. I slightly furrowed my brow. Aren't you saving any dowry for yourself? Tsayue was momentarily taken aback, then shook her head. I've never thought about getting married. Brother Zheng saved me, so I'm willing to repay him with everything I have. But you, miss, are the most important person to me. My life belongs to you, and I want to stay by your side forever. This is not the first time she has said such things, but in her previous life, she was more mature and composed than she is now, with a touch of weariness in her eyes and tone that seemed out of place for her age. Yes, this lifetime's Tsayue is different from the Tsayue of the past life. This change is just like me. I suppressed the tremor in my heart. Tsukuyo, what do you think of Shueshu? At that time, she said, young Master Shui is handsome and noble, a fine person. Miss, please don't be angry when I say this, but he had been in contact with you all along, yet on the day of the marriage proposal, he proposed to the second young lady. I think he's not a good person. The scenes from 2 lifetimes slowly overlapped before my eyes. No, something's not right. In my previous life, I clearly thought Shueshu was a good match, someone I could marry. She said the Shui family wasn't involved in the court struggles. The Shui family would also be too intimidated by my father's power to dare mistreat me. Ever since I was reborn, I've been carefully observing the people and things around me, afraid that something might change, but I overlooked Tsayue, the little girl who followed me every day. If I could start over, what about Tsayue? Will she also come back again? I arrived at the present, she went to the past, and back then, I knew nothing. The present day Tsayue also knows nothing. It's like a circle. We are inside that circle. She changed my past, I changed her present, but I don't understand why Tsayue urged me to marry Shueshu. Her words lingered in my ears. Miss, my life is yours. Miss, I want you to live a peaceful, healthy life without any troubles. Miss, don't be afraid, Sayue will always be with you. I looked at her silly smile. Sayue, what role do you play in this absurd yet magical story? The carriage suddenly stopped on the road, and I couldn't help but lurch forward. Sayue immediately grabbed me. And only after seeing that I was fine did she step out of the carriage. What happened? A woman ran out in front and accidentally collided. I stepped out of the carriage and saw the woman on the ground clutching her stomach. Sayue had already helped support the person. Miss, what should we do? Where is the nearest medical clinic? The coachman replied. It would likely take the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn if we walk, help the person onto the carriage, and change our route to the medical clinic. Once in the carriage, the woman who had been unconscious opened her eyes, grabbed my hand, and slipped me a note. I know what you're investigating. I crumpled the note into a ball, my gaze falling on this unremarkable-looking woman. She took my hand and wrote a few words in my palm. The death of the former emperor. I held the woman's hand, stopping her movement, and glanced warily outside. Upon arriving at the medical clinic, the doctor examined her and said it was nothing serious, advising her to rest and recuperate for a month and avoid heavy labor. Tio went to prepare the medicine, while the woman lay in bed, watching me. You can speak freely here. The vigilance in my eyes did not fade. There is no rule in the clinic that forbids speaking, Miss Ming. You know what I'm talking about. I looked at her with a sharp gaze. Who told you? She shook her head gently. I can't say, she continued. I know what you want to do. I have no ill intentions toward you. I am here to help you, because what you want to do is exactly what I want to do. She hesitated for a moment. I was a palace maid serving the late emperor, Sui Wn. My fingers trembled slightly, but I feigned composure. What proof do you have? She was not angry because of my attitude. I have the late emperor's edict in my hand. It matches. Li Hongzhan said he had seen the late emperor's edict but could not find its whereabouts. Suiwan looked at me as if I were a lifeline. The late emperor's edict states that your highness is the true heir to the throne. Back then, His Majesty sensed something amiss in the crimes committed by the princes, as if they were deliberately guided. By the time His Majesty realized it, the only princes left in the palace were your highness and the current emperor. His Majesty is of Yu Kingdom bloodline and was never a candidate for the throne. Thus, the late emperor left the edict, entrusted it to me, and arranged for me to leave the palace. He said that if I heard of his death and the one who ascended the throne was not your highness, I should hide well and wait until the time was ripe. The great Yang's empire could be in anyone's hands, but never in the hands of foreigners, for those who are not of our kind will surely have different intentions. Back then, His Majesty was born unexpectedly. The late emperor, out of kindness, spared his life, but he harbored treacherous ambitions. In recent years, the great Yang's national power has gradually weakened, and the people are suffering. He only seeks to enjoy the power brought by the throne during his reign, and after his death, he will lead the great Yang to its downfall. All of this is his revenge. Speculation is one thing, but truly glimpsing the truth is another matter entirely. I feel as if my throat is being gripped by something. But he has been the emperor for so many years, and this is his empire. Suiwan sneered coldly, because this empire was not won by him through conquest, it was stolen. He is not a native of Great Yang, so of course he does not regard the people of Great Yang as his own. He is a robber. How could he truly care about something he stole? A dog, even if draped in the skin of a wolf, remains a dog. Nothing will change. Miss Ming, you can change. If this empire continues to be held in his hands, Great Yang will vanish, the people will suffer, and this land will be drenched in blood. She got off the bed and knelt solemnly before me. I beg Miss Ming to help me. With that, she lowered her head and kowtowed to the ground. You are just a palace maid, without any official position or duties. You could have ignored this matter. Do you know this could cost you your life? Suiwan straightened up, her expression calm, her eyes filled with fearless determination. If the lips are gone, the teeth will be cold. I could indeed stand aside, but I am a citizen of Great Yang, and I deeply love this land. I do not wish that 100 years from now, Great Yang will have vanished, and the people of this land will be bullied by foreign invaders. What does it matter if I sacrifice my life? What does it matter if I am just a palace maid? Though my status is lowly, I still understand the greater righteousness. I crouched down and helped her up, What a coincidence. We share the same hope. This is also a responsibility I cannot shirk. It's just that the person who can change things isn't me, but Li Hengzhan, and I am a crucial part of it. Suiwan gave me the imperial edict, and I hid it in my sleeve. Who has been helping you all these years? After the late emperor's death, his influence should have been affected. It would be difficult for you alone to hide safely for so many years. I need to know who our allies are. At the end of the year, she lowered her gaze and pondered for a moment. It was Her Highness the eldest princess who helped me, within reason, yet beyond expectation. Did the princess consort also die at the hands of His Majesty? At the year's end, his expression was filled with sorrow and indignation. Yes, the princess and her consort were a match made in heaven. When the princess discovered the emperor's sinister ambitions, he killed the consort to threaten her. Fortunately, the princess did not act impulsively, or else she might have suffered the same fate. The emperor has killed so many people. So why did he spare the prince and the princess? Suiwan was also somewhat puzzled. Perhaps because they both helped His Majesty. When His Majesty was young, he was almost entirely overlooked. Those above ignored him, and those below didn't put in much effort. Later, the Grand Princess took pity on him and often had people look after him. The prince, by nature kind-hearted, also helped His Majesty on several occasions during that time. He was never interested in the throne, perhaps feeling it posed no threat to him, which is why he stayed. I vaguely felt that the Grand Princess might know something. Sayua brought in the prepared medicine on the way back. I looked at the somewhat dejected Sayua. She reached up and touched her own face. Miss, is there something on my face? Why do you keep staring at me? I smiled. I just think our Sayua is growing more and more beautiful. A blush spread across Sayua's cheeks. Oh, miss, how am I beautiful? You're just teasing me, as always. As I stepped down from the carriage, I instinctively glanced up at the sky. It felt like a dense, intricate net, enveloping me completely, as if every step I took had been preordained. Was meeting Suiwan the reason? Sayua had taken me out. I don't want to question her about anything. I just want her to tell me in person the things she's been hiding from me at this point. I naturally no longer think of Sayua as just a naive little maid who knows nothing. It must have been hard for her to keep so many things hidden. In my later years in my previous life, the country's strength had already greatly declined. Neighboring countries frequently launched attacks, but the Great Yang suffered repeated defeats. The emperor of that time had long since passed away, and the new son of heaven was the current crown prince. Although he worked very hard, he could not withstand the overwhelming tide of events. Shueshu was once filled with anger and indignation, for among all the civil and military officials in the court, there was not a single person who could be relied upon at that time. The Great Yang was like a weakened warhorse, all reputation and no substance. Once, nations from all over came to pay tribute, but now any country could come and win a battle. I lived in the inner quarters and did not see much. Perhaps not long after my death, the Great Yang came to its end. The people were slaughtered, the land was carved up. What is left for future generations is a scene of devastation and a history that is not particularly pleasant. How will future generations view the Great Yang of today? Incompetent, tragic. I do not want such an ending. I gave the imperial edict to Li Hengzhan. I have done my part, and the rest is up to him. He is the chosen one spoken of by the state preceptor. He will surely succeed, and we will surely triumph. Before that, I wished to see the Grand Princess. I went to the princess's residence, and the servants led me to the pond. The princess is fishing. Here, have a seat. I sat beside her, and she raised her hand, signaling everyone around to leave. I'll guess you came to me because you have some doubts, thinking I might have the answers, right? Yes, I would appreciate it if Your Highness could enlighten me. She fanned herself. I came here a long time ago, and everything here felt unfamiliar to me, both terrifying and exhilarating. I thought I was the chosen one, the one destined to save the crumbling empire. I believed that if I could eliminate the root cause of the threat, the tragedies that followed would never happen. But as the people around me died one by one, the last being my husband, I realized then that I could do nothing. Yet, you can. Everything in this world has its own solution, and you are that solution. In my world, this place is a part of history, grand, tragic, and tinged with sorrow. We often wonder, what if the Great Yang had not fallen? Would things have been better? Could we have avoided the humiliation that followed? I cannot say more. You must persevere. For you carry too much, and it is far too heavy. What does Jiao mean? She laughed heartily and gave me a thumbs up. It means to work hard, and this gesture means you're doing great. Li Hongzhan might have already started taking action, and he was extremely busy. One night, he held me tightly, his arm wrapped firmly around my waist. Madam, tomorrow I will arrange for you to leave the city to offer incense. Follow them. Once everything is over, I will come to find you. Rest assured, your mother and your sister, as well as my mother, will all go. You won't be alone. My heart tightened. All right, I'll go with them. But I'm only doing this so I won't hold you back. If you die, I'll come find you. You've already died with me once. I won't let you walk the path to the underworld alone either. I only hope that what the state preceptor said is true, that after the darkest hour comes the dawn, even through more storms, you will not die the next day. My mother-in-law and I boarded the carriage together, and there was another carriage carrying my mother and Ayu. After paying respects to my mother-in-law, Ayu boarded the same carriage as me. Why did you suddenly think of inviting my mother and me to go to the temple together? This must be Li Hongzhan's excuse. He had arranged everything. The carriage arrived at the foot of the mountain. The temple was sparsely populated, unusually quiet compared to before, but I knew that there must be guards secretly stationed here. We settled in the temple, and at night, unable to sleep, I sat in the courtyard gazing in the direction of the capital, hearing the commotion. Ayu came out yawning. Sister, what are you thinking about? She touched my hand, frowned, and blew warm air to warm it. Why don't you wear more clothes? Ayu, what was the wish you wrote that day? Ayu said with great pride. I hope I can become a general like my mother, go to the battlefield, and protect our home and country. Ayu's wish will surely come true, and you will become a great general whose name will be remembered for generations. Sis, everything will be fine, right? I looked at her. She pursed her lips, her eyes carrying a hint of hesitation. I know. There's going to be trouble in the capital, otherwise, why would my brother-in-law, who's usually so clingy, not come with you to offer incense? He's not the type who can bear to be apart from you. Don't worry, I'll protect you both. I even brought my sword with me when I came. In her past life, Ayu was indeed a general who went to the frontier and fought on the battlefield where she was stationed. The enemy dared not invade, and she often drove them into a panicked retreat, but she could only defend one place. While the great Yang had already rotted from its very roots, fortunately, she lived for a very, very long time at least. She was still alive when I died. I am grateful that Ayu lived long, and I am grateful that my father died early. If he were to see the state of great Yang later on, he would likely feel even more anguish and helplessness. In the temple, it was still just us and the monks. I knelt at the feet of the Buddha, reciting the Buddhist scriptures over and over again. That night, I heard the clashing of weapons. By the time I ran outside, Ayu had already brought my mother-in-law over, and together we went to my mother's room. My mother and Ayu shielded us behind them, each holding a long sword, its blade gleaming coldly under the moonlight. Shua, princess, don't be afraid, with me here. How dare these petty villains act recklessly? The chaos outside grew louder, footsteps, roars. Gradually, the noise outside subsided, and we stepped out of the room. A young man, clad in armor, appeared. Lady of the estate, I am here under the orders of the young master to protect all of you. The princess consort took a closer look. Aren't you the young man from the Lin family, the grand tutor? You spend your days eating, drinking, and having fun, never focusing on serious matters. Who would have thought you had this side to you? The young man felt a bit embarrassed. One should not judge by appearances. I am actually quite capable. Be careful. An arrow shot from nowhere, and Saya stood in front of me, the arrowhead piercing through her chest. Her pink dress was stained with blood, turning into a flower. I stood frozen in place until Ayu pulled me back into the house. The young man carried Saya inside, blood continuously spilling from his mouth. I held Saya, wiping the blood from her with a handkerchief. Go find a doctor. She grasped my hand. Miss, I have something I want to tell you. Don't speak. When you're better, I'll have plenty of time to listen. They've gone to find a doctor. Miss, I can't go on living. Please just listen to me for a moment. The people around us stepped aside, leaving the room to us. Actually, my name is Li Huiyan. My father was the former crown prince, and my mother was the crown princess. After my father died, my mother passed away too. I was hidden by my wet nurse. She wanted to take me away, but she also died. I ended up in a household where they made me their daughter. Later, one day when I was starving and dizzy, a young Taoist priest saved me. He said I couldn't die, I had things I needed to do. He brought me to you, miss, and told me what to do and when. He said you could save many, many people, including Zheng Huayan. I'm sorry for making you bear so much. If there is a next life, I will definitely let you live a peaceful and stable life, without worrying about anything else. Miss, don't be sad for me. The state preceptor said I might have to pay a price, and this is my price. You must take care of yourself. Please give the money pouch to Zheng Huayan for me and tell him, thank you for the steamed buns he gave me. After saying this, she closed her eyes and ceased to breathe. The sky began to lighten, the sun rose, and warmth fell upon her. Tsukuyo, it's dawn, come see me. After an unknown amount of time, the door opened, and Li Hengzhan entered, bringing a chill with him. He was covered in blood everywhere. Madam, I have come, my eyes ache, and I can no longer shed tears. After a long while, I lift the corners of my mouth. That's good, but the person in my arms can no longer be warmed. No matter how hard I try. I brought Saiwa's body back to the capital to inform the world of her identity. She was buried in the imperial mausoleum, next to the former crown prince and his consort. On the tombstone, she reclaimed her own name, Li Huiyan. The cousin of Li Hengzhan, Shueshu, died, reportedly accidentally struck by stray arrows. His death was somewhat hasty. Li Hengzhan ascended the throne and personally presided over the imperial examinations. During the palace examination, I saw Zheng Huayan sitting below, writing his essay stroke by stroke. Li Hengzhan appointed him as the top scholar. After leaving the main hall, I ordered someone to keep him behind. I, a humble commoner, pay my respects to Her Majesty the Queen. I have been entrusted by someone to give you something. The palace maid handed him the pouch, and Zheng Huayan's eyes instantly reddened. Your Majesty, where have you seen the owner of this pouch? I beg you to tell me. She is the one I love. She asked me to tell you something. She said thank you for the steamed buns you gave her. Zheng Huayan tightly clutched the pouch, his face turning pale. After bowing to me, he turned and left, his back no longer exuding the same spirited confidence. It had become slightly hunched. I called out to him, you should know her name. She is called Li Huiyan, the Hui for wisdom, the Ren for peace. Thank you, Your Highness. I know what to do now. Li Hengzhan appointed Zheng Huayan to an official position, and he did nothing else but devoted himself wholeheartedly to government affairs. He was protecting the one he loved in his own way. When I saw her at the end of the year, she bowed to me once again. I asked her what she wanted to do in the future. She said she wanted to guard the imperial mausoleum. With your merits, you could become a female official. She shook her head. No, I just want to stay guarding the imperial mausoleum, just like I used to guard His Majesty. After seeing Suiwan off, when I returned, the Grand Princess was already sitting in the main hall drinking tea. I might have to leave, really. She shrugged. I'm not sure either. It's just a feeling, an intuition. If I die someday, don't be sad. I'm just going home. Now that these things have changed, how could you still be the way you see yourself? She thought for a moment. Not necessarily. It's likely that the outcome won't change, but a new result will emerge, a parallel timeline, the same group of people, the same event. Your change affects what happens on another line. On the original line, the ending is already unchangeable. Of course, if you change, perhaps another version of me in another world will see a different outcome. Overall, it's actually a good thing. The Grand Princess left. Her premonition was right. Half a month later, news came from the Grand Princess's residence. She was gone, having fallen asleep at night and never waking up again. Perhaps she has already opened her eyes in another place, returning to the life that was originally hers. You requested an imperial decree. She was going to the frontier. Although my mother was reluctant to let her go, she thought back to her own youth and how she had been the same way. So she agreed. My mother patted her on the shoulder. Live well. If you die carelessly, you'll bring shame on your mother. On the contrary, it was my father who, afraid my mother would hear, hid in the courtyard and cried at night. But my mother still heard him. She was quite proud when she told me about it. Don't I know him well? He hid in the courtyard and cried the day I got pregnant. He cried when I gave birth to you all, and he even cried when you got married. I went to see the national preceptor. I heard from Huiyan that when you met a young Taoist priest, was that you? The National Preceptor nodded. It was me. I looked at the person before me, who appeared extremely aged. He gave a helpless smile. There's no way around it. You all have to bear the karma. And of course, I can't avoid it either for defying fate. Back in the day, I was young and beautiful too. In our sect, I was the prettiest. Thank you. He was originally a person beyond worldly affairs and shouldn't have gotten involved in these matters. I heard that the immortals of the Gathering Immortals Valley are all long-lived, still looking like young people even after 100 years. The Grand Preceptor was indifferent. I am famously soft-hearted and cannot bear to see living beings suffer. As for life and death, they are but external matters. When I came down from the stargazing tower, Li Hengzhan was waiting for me below, the sunlight falling upon him. Upon seeing me, he extended his hand toward me. Let's go home. Go home. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.